Hey people, Shinobi no Kami here. In this fanfic after the Kyuubi attack, Naruto was adopted by Kakashi Hatake, an ex-Anbu captain and a student of Naruto's father Minato. How will this change the little Naruto's life? Will he be spared from the villagers' hatred or will things be the same as in the original timeline? Watch to know. Before we begin, please use the like button and share the video if you enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. Now, let's roll the intro. Chapter 46, May the Exams Begin. This was the day that Naruto and his friends would enter into the Chunin exams. He had barely gotten any sleep that night as he had been too excited. When he caught up with his teammates he could tell that both of them looked to have a little trouble sleeping as well. But they were all looking forward to this. They made their way to the academy. Naruto wanted to run there but both teammates held him back. Sakura scolded him to keep his excitement down. They needed to focus and there was no telling what they would be up against. As they made their way there, Team 7 noticed other teams going to the building. Looks like a few other teams are here, Naruto muttered looking at the different forehead protectors. I can see a grass nin team and is that a mist headband? Looks like it, Sasuke said seeing the three-man team Naruto pointed out. Naruto felt a bit nervous about that. It was a good thing that Zabuza wasn't here with Haku. He had wanted to know if they could come but his dad had warned him that it was a bad idea the last time Naruto sent a letter to Wave. After all, Zabuza was, officially, listed as dead and if someone recognized the man it wouldn't have been good. Looks like Iwa finally sent a team this year, Naruto muttered seeing the markings of the village hidden in the rocks. His dad had told him stories of the last Great War. There were still hard feelings between the villages, mainly from Iwagakure since they had lost the war. Normally when Konoha held the Chunin exams Iwa didn't always send a team. Apparently this year things were different. Hey, out of the way shorty, said a voice that came behind Team 7. Naruto turned to see who called him that, as he was still a bit sensitive about his height. Behind him was an older boy in some kind of black suit with purple face paint and something on his back. With them was a blonde girl and standing a little off to the side was a red-headed boy. There was something off with the last one. He just kept staring into space looking bored. He was kind of creepy looking too. What did you call me? Naruto challenged him. You heard me, the boy said. I think the last person that should insult someone is a guy who wears makeup on his face. Naruto shouted out at him. What the hell did you say? The older boy said angrily. This is war paint you little shrimp. Call me that again and you'll need more makeup to cover the bruises on your face. That's enough Naruto, Sakura said to him knowing his temper. Are you three sand ninja? Our villages are supposed to be allies so I apologize for his behavior. But he started it, Naruto whined but was silenced by an angry glare by Sakura. Kankuro that's enough out of you as well, the blonde said to him. Oh come on Tamari, Kankuro said back. I was just having some fun. Be that as it may, the girl is right. Tamari glared at her younger brother. We're here for the Chunin exams and I won't let you get us getting kicked out for fighting with a team when we haven't even gotten into the building. We're wasting time, the red-headed boy suddenly said. We're moving, now. The way the boy spoke was something that Team 7 couldn't miss. He was quiet but there was a threatening undertone to it all. They were also surprised by the killing intent behind the boy as well, that was directed at his own teammates. Oh of course Gaara, Tamari said quickly as the Suna team moved off. Man I'm so glad we don't have a guy like that on our team, Naruto muttered. Was he giving anyone else the creeps? Yeah, Sakura said. She had just met the boy but there was something just not right about him. Those cold emotionless eyes and face and his voice was very off-putting. Sasuke just gave a small grunt as he walked on. Bastard is trying to be cool again, Naruto muttered to himself. With that Team 7 entered the academy, it was weird to be back here after spending so much time as Genins. Although they didn't have time to think about old times, as when they made it to the second floor they noticed a whole group there. They saw Team Guy arguing with a couple of older kids who seemed to be trying to keep people out. They kept on saying things like how everyone here wouldn't make it, how hard the exam was and things like that. Naruto was a bit confused when he saw Tenten and her team being pushed around. Why the hell doesn't she just kick his ass? Naruto said to his friends. Quiet, Sasuke told him. Can't you see what's going on? At Naruto's blank look he sighed, wondering why he let himself become friends with an idiot. They're acting, everyone here is against each other's teams, remember? That means everyone here is looking to see what the other can do. So if they act weak, everyone here will think they're weak. Naruto suddenly got it. He had to admit it was a neat trick. There's something else odd, Sakura said as she noticed something else. We're on the second floor, so why does that room number say it's the third? Everyone looked at the small sign above the door. It was then Sasuke cast a quick look behind them and noticed the other doors started with a 2. He gave a small grin as he caught onto the genjutsu. He explained it to them and said they should quietly make their way around this. Sakura agreed that it would give them better odds in the exam if they didn't blow the genjutsu. Besides, she caught Team Guy sneaking past when another group challenged the two boys. Nice acting job, guys, Naruto said as they caught up to Team Guy. Thanks, Tenten said, then rubbed her ass. Although I wish I could have landed better. Sakura-chan, Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun. Lee came up to them with a huge gleaming smile. I was glad to hear that you all joined as well. Let us all compete and see whose flames of youth burn brightest. Huh, you said something. Naruto said as though he wasn't listening. Ah, Lee pointed an accusing finger at Naruto. You are using your father's hip and too cool attitude. Great, Neji muttered to himself next to Tenten. Now it's Guy and Kakashi, the next generation. Tenten giggled at the joke covering her mouth as Naruto and Lee acted like Guy and Kakashi. She noticed Sakura and Sasuke walk up, leaving the other two to their little interactions. Hey Tenten, Sakura greeted. It's nice to see a familiar face in this. Yeah, but remember, we may be friends, but in this it's every team for themselves. Tenten said in a friendly tone. Sakura nodded in agreement. Oh, trust me, I've been working on my tonfas and a few other things in case we meet up again. Then I look forward to it. Tenten told her as both girls shook hands. It was then that they noticed that Sasuke and Neji were posing and staring at the other. Neither one wanted to show any weakness to the other. This left both girls to sigh at this. It just seemed that they couldn't expect those two to get alone for a few seconds. Hyuga, Sasuke said. Uchiha, Neji returned. With the friendly greeting out of the way, Sasuke turned to face the girls. He noticed Tenten and suddenly an evil idea entered his mind. After all, he remembered what Naruto did around her to get under Neji's skin, so why let it go to waste? Naruto had a girlfriend and couldn't continue the little fun, plus he had to admit Tenten interested him. It's nice to see you again, he said to the weapons girl. Tenten was surprised at this but gave a smile back. Yeah, nice to see you too. I look forward to seeing you show your skills out there, Sasuke told her and then leaned in a bit close. You know, Naruto isn't the only one that thought you were cute. With that he moved off, leaving a very blushing Tenten behind, and Sasuke could swear he heard Neji grinding his teeth together, or at least he imagined the other boy was. Team 7, after prying Naruto away from Lee, got to the front doors. No one was there, so they entered into and they couldn't believe what they found. The entire room was nearly filled up with genins from all over the place. Great, Naruto muttered. So much for thinning out the crowd downstairs. Oh well, just another challenge, right? Sakura said, trying to be optimistic. Sasuke was about to make a comment when a loud piercing scream made him flinch. He also felt the familiar arms of another annoying blonde in his life as Ino latched onto him. Seriously, couldn't the girl take the hint he wasn't interested in fangirls? He was wondering if he could convince Tenten to pose as his girlfriend of something to get them off his back for once. Ino. Sakura yelled at her. You know that Sasuke-kun hates that. Oh come on, I hardly ever get to see my precious Sasuke-kun, Ino whined. You get him all to yourself, you know. Naruto snickered at Sasuke's face as he tried to get out of Ino's grasp once again. So where's Choji and Shikamaru? Over here, man, Choji said as he and his lifelong friend walked up to them. I'm surprised you guys could get Shikamaru to enter into this, Naruto joked. Shikamaru just sighed. Ino threatened to make my life a living hell if she couldn't enter into this. My life is troublesome enough as it is without her on my case all the time about this. I really didn't want to do 6 months of her complaining until the next one. Figures, Naruto smirked. So where's Team 8? Why looking for your girlfriend? Kiba asked him as he came forward with a huge grin on Naruto's blushing face, at least the blush that could be seen just above his mask. At least I got a girlfriend, dog breath, Naruto told him. Yeah, and it took you only how long to realize that she likes you? Kiba laughed as Naruto had nothing more to say on that. Kiba-kun, be nice, Hinata's voice said as she walked out from behind her teammate. Then she turned and smiled brightly at Naruto. Hello Naruto-kun. Hey there Hinata-chan, Naruto said brightly, taking a hand in his and giving her a light peek on the cheek. Making the young girl blush but still smiling at it. Missed you, and good luck today. Why you too Naruto-kun? She smiled back at him. Ino sighed at the sight. Why can't Sasuke-kun be like that with me? Because he doesn't like you. Shikamaru sighed. Ino quickly glared at the shadow user. Shut it. You kids really should learn to keep it down. They looked to see a genin that was a few years older than they were. He had glasses with white hair but he seemed to have a friendly manner about him. You're starting to get on the nerves of the others. Everyone looked behind him to see a room full of glares at their antics. Oops, Naruto chuckled as he scratched the back of his head. We'll keep it down. Sorry I didn't get your name. That's because I didn't say it yet, the boy smiled at them. I'm Kabuto Yakushi. So is this your first time here? Sakura asked him. Oh no, I've done this many times before, it's kind of embarrassing actually. Kabuto said, giving a small laugh. Oh man, how hard is this? Ino moaned. She had hoped to pass, but if this guy had been doing it several times, she suddenly didn't have such high hopes anymore. Well, if it was easy anyone could make Chunin, Kabuto explained to her. Although this year I think I got the inside track. You see, all this time has given me a good insight to all the competition. I've been gathering information on all the people here so I know what they can and can't do. That would be extremely helpful, Shino observed. But wouldn't such information be valuable to others as well? Kabuto smiled as he pulled out what looked like blank cards. I thought of that, that's why I made these. These cards hold all my information but they respond to my chakra only, so only I can use them. Watch this. With that he pulled out a card and a slight blue glow showed up around it. Then the information suddenly appeared. There were states, a bio and even a picture. It was a very detailed piece of information actually. Let's see who we got here. I'll look at that. Sasuke Uchiha, genin of the year of his graduating class, put on Team 7 under Kakashi Hatake. You have 16 D rank missions, one that was turned into a B rank and another that went up to an A rank mission. That's impressive for someone that young. Now then, says here you have a few fire jutsus under your belt, activated you Sharingan and you're above average with swords. Family fighting style of intercepting fist is your primary, taijutsu style is your above genin level in hand to hand. Also says you're the only of 2 living Uchiha left in the world as well, given that your brother. That's enough, Sasuke snapped at him. The last thing he wanted was to go through that personal history. He also didn't want to go into his brother, he knew what that man did and there was no need to open that door to his past up again. That seemed kind of specific, Kiba remarked. Well, I do my research, plus as a Konoha ninja I have better access to those in our village. Kabuto explained to him. But I still have information on the other just in case as well. Really? Sasuke asked, then looked at the Sand team. What can you tell us about that Suna team? Kabuto pulled out the cards and read them off. Apparently they're all siblings and the children of Suna's cage. Kankuro was something called a puppet user. This was a bit lost on the genins as they had never heard of it. Apparently it was a specialty in Suna that uses giant ninja puppets. Tamari was a wind user and top kunoichi of her class with very high marks. Gaara was a bit more of a mystery other than he used some kind of sand jutsu, but what was really odd was the team's mission profiles. They had many B-ranked missions and Gaara had never been injured once while on them. What? That can't be right, Kiba said looking at the card. No one can go on those missions and not get hurt, at least not a genin. Well, I assure you that my cards are very accurate, Kabuto stated, pushing up his glasses slightly. Looks like that team is the one to be careful of, Sakura said, casting a slight worried look at the Suna team. Hey, don't worry, Naruto said, smiling at her. They never met us yet and we'll show them what Konoha ninja are made of. Hey, I don't recognize their headband, Choji said as he noticed a trio in the room. Which ones? Ino asked, looking around. The girl with the long hair, with the boy and the other guy with bandages all over him. Oh, I see them, yeah, that is weird, Ino said, noticing the symbol. What kind of village uses a musical note as a symbol? Ah, that would be the Sound Village, Kabuto explained. You see, they're a new village, in fact this is their first Chunin exam. But not much is known about them, since like I said they are new and in one of the smaller nation. Hey, you got a problem with us? One of the Sound Genin said as the trio moved closer. They had been listening in and they didn't like the way the Leaf Genin was talking about their village, almost like he was looking down on them just because their village was new. Well, they were going to show that just because their village was young it didn't mean it was weak. It was then that a fight broke out. Kabuto got into a fighting stance as the leader of the Sound team, a boy named Dosu, ran forward and took a swing. It had looked like the bandaged boy had missed, but Kabuto's glasses broke and the older boy fell to his knees, sick to his stomach. Before anything else could be done, Naruto was there with his sword drawn at Dosu. The other two Sound members made to move, but both Sakura and Sasuke went to block them as well. The entire room tensed up as genins from all over started to get ready for a brawl. All the pent-up energy that had been building up in the room was about to explode. Thankfully, before the first ever Chunin battle royal in history, the doors flew open as a large, powerfully built man with a commanding presence entered. He wore a trench coat and his face was covered in scars. That's enough, he commanded. Everyone get into your assigned seats within 3 minutes or I'll fail any of you that aren't seated. Oh crap, Naruto muttered as he saw Ibiki. Friend of yours? Sasuke asked dryly. One of my dad's poker buddies, Naruto told them as they started to move towards their seats. He's in charge of the torture and interrogation department. He's kind of creepy and likes to play mind games. Is that so, Hatake? Came the deep voice as Naruto froze in place. He nervously looked over his shoulder at Ibiki, who was standing behind him. I suggest you get to your seat before I fail you, you got that? Naruto quickly nodded and ran off to find his seat. Ibiki grinned, maybe this first exam would be a bit more fun than he thought it would be. Naruto couldn't believe his luck when he sat down in his assigned seat, to find Hinata of all people right next to him. To him that was a good omen as he gave her a little wink. He smiled seeing her blush shyly, he loved it when she looked like that. She just looked so cute and he wondered if there was any way for them to sneak off to a closet. But then Ibiki told them to shut up and the rules of the first part of the exam. Just when things were looking up, Naruto heard what the first part was. It was a damn written test of all things, the bane of his existence in school. Naruto silently screamed in his head, he had never been good with tests. Even his dad had once said that he was great at the practical stuff, but with this kind of thing he just sucked. Never let it be said that Kakashi Hatake never mixed words, he said what he thought without pulling any punches. Naruto looked at the sheet and his eyes glazed over at the questions. Sure, he hadn't been that good with his studies and needed help at times, but looking at the sheet he was sure they never covered this stuff in school. The first question alone read is, if target A is 15 feet away, traveling at a speed of 5 miles per hour due east. You have a kunai of a weight of 1 pound and you have a throwing arm of 70 miles per hour, wind velocity is coming from the west at 4 knots. At what point from the center of axis between target A and yourself, do you throw your kunai? Naruto just sat there, his mind totally blank, he was in big trouble and he knew it. That was just the first question and already he just felt his confidence dwindle to nearly nothing. He was so dead and he knew it. He felt a slight nudge from Hinata, who had filled out a few of the answers already. He was surprised to see her Byakugan activated. She was cheating, and apparently with how easy it was to look at her paper, she was giving him an easy way to cheat as well. He wasn't sure if he should when he noticed something else, everyone seemed to be cheating. Well, except Sakura, she was the only one that actually didn't need to cheat as she was smart enough to actually know this stuff. With that he suddenly got the idea behind the whole test. He knew that Ibiki liked to play mind games. Was that what all this was? Well, look underneath the underneath like Dad says, Naruto thought. Outside. Across the building waiting on the rooftops was Anko. She had her little surprise there just waiting for her grand entrance. Although she never was one for waiting and she was getting very bored. She leaned forward against the waist-high wall just looking through the windows at the genins. She could see a few being thrown out for being too obvious in their cheating. Honestly, if a ninja couldn't learn to cheat well they would be better off as genins. Man, I wish I brought myself some dango at least, Anko sighed. Ask and you shall receive. Anko quickly turned around as instincts kicked in. She didn't like having people sneak up on her and she lashed out without thinking. Thankfully the person caught her wrist and pulled her up against his body. Now is that any way to greet me? Kakashi asked her amused. You ass, you knew what would happen if you snuck up on me. She wanted to be angry but she couldn't totally be angry with him. Although she did hate the fact that he could sneak up on her, barely anyone could do that as it was. Then she noticed that with his free hand he lifted up a few sticks of her favorite type of dango. Ooh, gimme. She reached out but he pulled his arm back just out of reach. Hey, I think that being the good boyfriend that I am, I should get a reward for this, don't you? Kakashi smirked. Anko grinned and with her free hand pulled down his mask to give him a long sensual kiss. She had to admit there were some very good upsides to being in a relationship. She liked the way Kakashi tasted and although you never knew it, he put a lot of passion into these kinds of moments. The man he looks and he could sure damn well kiss. But she wasn't going to be outdone by him. She slipped her tongue through his lips, pulled herself up against him even hard. By the time they pulled away both needed some air and both felt like they wanted more of each other as well. There was surprisingly a lot of passion in their relationship, maybe it was all that repressed emotions and never letting it out before. It could also be from that fact that they had never been comfortable enough with another person to open up like this. Whatever the reason, their relationship burned like a fire within them. Kakashi smiled as he pulled up his mask. Well, that's a good reward, all right. It better be. Anko smirked as he released her wrist and she took a step back, and took the dango sticks in her other hand to her mouth. Kakashi blinked and looked at the hand that was supposed to have held the snacks and then gave a small laugh. She had used the kiss as a distraction to take them from him, Cleaver, and he would remember that. He looked at the bundle by her and looked at it confused. Do I even want to know what you have planned with that? He pointed at it. She smiled at him. Just my way of making a big entrance. Kakashi sighed. Always have to make an impression, don't you? Anko laughed at that and nodded. Oh yeah, you know it. I do, Kakashi said as he got closer to her. I think I still have a few impression your nails did on my back a few nights ago. Ah, want me to kiss them and make them better? Anko teased, taking another bite of the snacks. Although to her it was his own damn fault. If he didn't want her to leave marks then he shouldn't get her so worked up in bed. Although she remembered a few marks he left as well and was thankful her clothing covered those areas up. Maybe later, Kakashi said and then looked at the windows. So how are they doing? Not sure, Anko said. I can only see like a third of the damn room but I think your brat is still in the running. Oh I know, Kakashi said happily. He's my son after all and I trust his team to do well. Anko had to admit that Kakashi made a good father at times. He was so confident in Naruto and his team that she kind of wished she had that before Orochimaru. But she learned that you can't change the past, just live with it and go on. And she had moved on. She was a special Jonin now, had good friends, and was finally in a healthy, stable relationship. Yeah, so far life was good and she felt like things were going well. As she finished the last of her snacks she leaned next with Kakashi as they watched the kids. She wasn't the type to be all girly but with no one around she could drop her guard a little. She leaned her head against his shoulder and she wasn't surprised when he gently placed an arm around her. She gave a small sigh of contentment. For some reason just being held by him like this felt nice. After about 5 minutes though it was getting a bit boring just standing there waiting. God, how much longer is ZODIVK going to drag this out? Anko muttered. Getting bored. Hell yeah. Okay then how about? Kakashi trailed off as his arm went down slowly caressing her back along the spine. He gently started to make small circle patterns in her lower back for a bit. We passed the time in a more pleasurable way. His hand then reached her ass and she suddenly didn't feel so bored at the moment. Chunin test room. Naruto couldn't believe that after everything it had all been a setup. After he got the answers from Hinata and waited for the clock to end the test, but before the end that scared bastard pulled a fast one on them. He should have known that Ibiki wasn't through with them yet, so he made up that so-called 10th question. A question that if they took and failed they were supposed to stay as genin forever, and the other option was to leave but your entire team would go as well. A few took the leaving option, but Naruto didn't want to back down. There was no way in hell he was going to quit now. He saw that Hinata looked a little nervous and gently took her hand in his. She gave him a small smile and he felt her grip his hand a bit harder. He gave a quick nod to his teammates and they waited. But it turns out it was just another mind game. The way to answer the question was to just simply stay in the room. Naruto felt relieved and also pissed off at this. Of course he forgot it as soon as Ibiki took off that bandana of his and went on some kind of speech about information. He honestly wasn't really paying attention as he tried not to stare. Ibiki liked to show those off during the really high-stakes games to put everyone off their game. He had done it to Naruto a few times and he really hated it when the man did it. After his speech he said the next person to take over the exam would show up. So they waited, and after 20 minutes even Ibiki was checking the clock. "She's not normally this late," Ibiki muttered to himself. Finally the window crashed open and a giant poster with the words, "Enko Mitarashi, Proctor for Part 2." On it. Naruto groaned. He should have known that he would run into someone else he knew from his father. To have his crazy aunt, his dad's girlfriend, in charge, he was sure she would try and pull some kind of jokes on him. "You're late," Ibiki said to her. "What did you do run here?" He noticed how her hair was slightly unkempt and how her clothing was a bit ruffled. She also seemed a little flushed as well. Enko nearly sweat dropped as she scratched the back of her head. Well, this thing took more time to set up than I thought, so I had to run to get here," Enko said, hoping everyone believed the lie. Then she noticed one of the boys was looking at her strangely. She remembered him as one of Naruto's friends. "You got something to say?" Enko asked. Kiba smirked as he and Akamaru could smell more than just sweat on her. "Nothing, but was the running before or after you met Naruto's dad?" Enko tensed up as she suddenly cursed in her mind. She had forgotten what clan that boy had come from. That damn Inuzuka nose of his must have smelt the sex on her as well as Kakashi. Naruto blinked a few times as he thought about what Kiba said and how he was trying not to laugh. Then he looked at Enko and suddenly it all hit him. I didn't need to know that," he shouted, grabbing his head and slamming his face onto the desk. Kiba burst out laughing as Enko made a mental note to torture Kiba later on for this. No one made a fool out of her and got away with it. "This is going to be a long exam," Ibiki sighed, palming his face with his hand. Chapter 47, Into the Forest. Naruto was mainly bored at the moment. Everyone that had made it was led to some giant forested area that was fenced off. He had heard of the Forest of Death, but this was the first time seeing it. Okay. Sure, he was a bit intimidated by it all and he heard the stories about all the dangerous things in there. Then again, it had been Enko to tell those stories, so he wasn't sure how much was true and how much she was just trying to freak him out. At any rate, he was still trying to burn out the image in his mind thanks to Kiba. Sakura nudged him. "Are you paying attention?" she whispered. "Oh, yeah, of course," he grinned at her. Then he noticed the look she was giving him. "Hey, is this the face of a lair?" Sakura scowled at the masked boy, wondering if Naruto even remembered that he wore a mask all the time. Enko went into about how dangerous the forest was and the whole setup for this part of the exam. How one team had one scroll and you needed 2 scrolls, but not just any 2. You needed 1 Heave and 1 Earth scroll. So the point was for the teams to basically life off the forest for 3 days, while fending off the other teams and beating the hell of the others to steal the other one they would need. After that, they were to go to the tower in the center of the forest, but only after 3 days would they be allowed in. Wait, even though we get both we have to wait at least 3 whole days. What kind of stupid rule is that? Kiba asked himself. He suddenly found a kunai up against his throat and looked to see the maniacal smile of Enko next to him. Well, if it isn't the whistle-blower, you really can't keep that big mouth of yours shut, huh, dog boy? Now I want you to behave because I'm not above neutering you. Do we understand now? Kiba gulped and nodded. Good, she said, pulling the weapon back and walking off. She wasn't sure if that made things even, but it was a start at least. After that, things went a bit more smoothly. Each team was assigned a gate to enter as well as a scroll. Sakura was picked to carry the scroll for the team as she was dependable for it. After that, Naruto wanted to speak to Hinata one last time, but her team had already left for their gate. He found her and her team just as they were getting ready to depart for their own gate. "Hey Hinata-chan, wait up," Naruto called out as he approached his girlfriend. "Hey, I wanted to see you off before we started." Hinata smiled as her cheeks grew red. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. Good luck when you're out there." I don't need luck, I got cool skills," Naruto smirked proudly as he jerked his thumb towards his chest. "It is best not to underestimate the other teams," Shino said to him. "Although many are from this village, the ones who are not your friends will hardly pull their punches. Plus the others from villages other than our own surely will not hold back." Naruto sighed. "You really know how to depress a guy, you know that." Kiba could only grin at the masked boy's response. "Yeah, and don't count us out either, I bet you we'll get to the tower before you." "Oh yeah, so what's the bet going to be?" Naruto grinned. Normally he had great luck with bets, so he figured he would try to see what Kiba had in mind. The taller boy blushed a bit as he leaned down to whisper something into his ear. Naruto blinked in surprise, but he gave a small perverted giggle much like his dad. He had to admit that Kiba had good tastes at least. "Alright, I think I can work something out," he told him. Then he thought about what he would like for Kiba to do. It was too bad that he was dating Hinata. A part of him wondered if he could have gotten Kiba to get a naked picture of his older sister. He had to admit that she had grown since he first met her. He even once managed to dare him to steal a pair of her panties once, a year ago when they were playing a daring game. Kiba got caught, and boy, his sister and mother were scary when mad. He also realized he needed to get Kiba back for putting that damn mental image of his father and Anko in his mind, and for the betting. He suddenly got a very nasty image in his mind. "Okay, if I win, then you have to put on a dog collar and Aunt Anko gets to take you for a walk around the block on a leash." Naruto figured that Anko would love the idea and would love to get in her own revenge with him. Kiba paled at the thought, but honestly it was worth it. "Fine, but you better believe that I'm not going to lose this bet." Naruto then looked at Hinata and gave her a warm look. "Take care of Hinata-chan too, because if anything happens to her then you'll answer to me." "Got it, you guys. She is our teammate," Shino said calmly to him. "We will always look out for one another." "Yeah, you can trust us," Kiba nodded. Naruto nodded to them both and hugged Hinata. She was surprised by the public display of affection, but she soon gave a small sigh as she hugged him back. She then felt a small kiss on her neck, making her face turn bright red. "I'll miss you, Haim-chan." It was the first time he had used a pet name for her, and she kind of liked being called princess, at least by him. He said it in a way that was filled with warm emotion as well. She felt like she could float, and for a moment was wondering why she was seeing the sky before she blacked out again. "Huh, Hinata!" Naruto shouted out in surprise, holding his once again unconscious girlfriend. "Ah damn it, did you have to take it so far?" Kiba said, a bit frustrated at this. After seeing this for years, both Kiba and Shino carried an ample supply of smelling salts. He gently took Hinata from Naruto as Shino dug into his pockets for the small vial he carried. "Oh man, I really hope she gets over the fainting thing," Naruto scratched the back of his head. The blushing was cute, but one of these days he felt her fainting was going to land him in trouble one day. "Just get going," Kiba sighed as Shino started to apply the smelling salts. "I bet your team is looking for you and we need to hurry and get to our gate." After apologizing again, he ran off to find Sakura and Sasuke. He managed to find them as they had been waiting for him to show up. By the annoyed looks, he had been gone a little too long, so he gave an excuse about being lost on the path of life. He had thought it was funny, but apparently they just gave him a twin set of death glares that shut him up after it. They were silently making their way to their gate at that moment when they were stopped just short of reaching it. "Hey you three," a voice called out to Team 7. The three Genins turned to see another Genin team walking towards them. They noticed the mist headbands they were wearing. They seemed to have singled out Team 7 for some reason. There was a girl, with two boys like their own team. The girl had on bandages over her body for some reason, with long dark hair, dressed in all in white with cargo pants and a shirt with the sleeves cut off. The other boy was a bit taller than either of them, wearing goggles on his eyes. He had strong features and looked like he would be a huge man one day. It was the last one, was the one that had yelled at them. He had dark brown spiky hair and piercing blue eyes, thin face with sharp features. He looked like the leader of the group as he stood between the others. He carried a thick sword on his back, almost like a miniature version of the sword that Zabuza used, only without any holes in it. "You are the team that supposedly killed the traitor Zabuza Motochi?" the leader asked them. "Who wants to know?" Sasuke asked, giving him a level glare. The lead boy cast a glare at Sasuke for a different reason, the last of the Uchiha, right? "It's a pity that your kind wasn't wiped out." "What the hell do you mean by that?" Sasuke demanded. "Bloodlines are an abomination in this world, that's what," the other boy stated. "We took care of those mistakes in our country." It was then that Naruto remembered the story that Haku told him, about how everyone in the Land of Water who had any bloodline was hunted down and killed. How Haku's mother had one and kept it secret. When Haku's father found out that Haku and his mother had a bloodline all this time, he had killed his own wife and would have killed his own son as well. Naruto knew the story, but he had never seen such blind hatred for something just because of what they could do. "What the hell is your problem?" Naruto said angrily to them. "Just because someone has a bloodline doesn't mean you have a right to kill them." "Well then, we'll see about that in the exam." The lead boy smirked at Sasuke, then he turned to Naruto and talked to him. "I am Gendo Kage of the Mist, and these are my teammates." Amy, the girl, nodded her head. "And Akuma." The taller of the boys nodded. "Yeah, we're the guys, so what do you want from us?" Naruto asked Gendo angrily. Gendo fixed Naruto with a praising look and after a moment gave a small grunt. To think that one of the great 7 swordsmen could have been defeated by a weak team. I suppose the traitor was too weak to have died honorably back in Mist. Well, the man was a coward, Amy snickered. He tried to kill the Mizukage, and when he failed he ran like a scared little dog that he was. It was only a matter of time he would be hunted down and killed like any rabid animal. Naruto clenched his fists in anger. Although Zabuza was still very much alive, he didn't like the way these people were talking about him. "When I heard you were the team that killed him, I had to see for myself," Gendo said, looking over Team 7. "And to my surprise I find a weak-looking pink-haired girl, the last of a cursed bloodline, and a loud-mouthed fool. If this is the team that was responsible, then I weep for our hunting nins. To think they were beat out of their prize by this." Asuma gave a small laugh. "Then I guess we'll prove our worth when we beat them." Gendo nodded. "If we beat the team that was killed him, then it would prove us very strong and would most likely earn us that promotion. So I hope we run into each other in the forest then, because we will see you sooner or later and we'll kill you to prove our strength." With that, the 3 members left the Leaf Genins as they went to their own gate. "What was that all about?" Sakura asked them. "Sounds like we made ourselves targets by killing Zabuza," Sasuke said, glaring at the Mist Genins. "I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the reasons they chose to enter this exam this year. At any rate, we should be careful, they'll come after us." Sakura sighed. "Great, as if we don't have enough to worry about." Konoha. Kakashi was walking down the street whistling to himself after all things were going great. His team had made it to the second part of the exam with no problems. Now he had 3 days to kill before he showed up at the tower to wait for his team. Although he was a bit worried, after all his son was in this, but he trusted them. The other reason he was in such a good mood was simple. How else does a guy feel when they screw their girlfriend so well they leave nail tracks in his back? He had to make a quick stop at his place to make sure she hadn't drawn blood. She really kept her nails sharp, but for some reason the scratching he didn't mind. It had been surprising how far things went on the roof. He only meant to make out with her, but then things just sort of led further, not that he was complaining. Although he did have to cover her mouth when she got a bit too noisy, it had been one hell of a thrill. Sex out in the open, it sure got the blood pumping. It was then that he had a surprising person show up again in his life. Kakashi noticed a very familiar man leaning against a wall. It was none other than Jiraiya himself, and he looked up at Kakashi as he arrived and nodded to the man. "Hey there Kakashi, you mind spending time with an old man for a bit?" he asked with a smile. Although Kakashi was to meet up with Anko later, he could afford some time. "Sure thing." The two fell into step with another as they walked through the village. Jiraiya had been looking for Kakashi for a while now. He had a few things to talk about, and that was mainly about Naruto. But that could wait for a moment. After all, there were a few things he wanted to talk about. He grinned as he noticed how happy Kakashi was, and his pervert sense was tingling. "So, who's the lucky lady?" Jiraiya smirked at the taller man. Kakashi was a little surprised by it, but then he remembered that Jiraiya was Konoha's spy master for a reason. Things have developed since the last time you were here. Oh. Jiraiya grinned. Got you a lady friend, huh? Don't suppose you could give me some details. If I did, then Anko would kill us both if she finds out you put her into one of your books, he told him. Anko. You don't mean that girl that was Orochimaru's old student? He asked him, and Kakashi nodded. Huh, hope she's doing well. I think I saw her at the boy's birthday party once when he was younger. How is the boy doing? I think you'd be surprised by him, Kakashi said. He's coming along very good. He's learning wind nature manipulation at the moment. He's still working on a couple of the jutsus, but given his age that's pretty good. He's also found himself a little girlfriend as well. Now Jiraiya was very proud of his godson. Given his job he couldn't be in Konoha for long periods of time, but he made an exception now and then. With the Chunin exams he wanted to see how Naruto would do, plus if the boy was anything like Minato then maybe he could give the boy some training as well. He had already met the boy at the hot springs with that other little kid and he had a liking for the boy. But to hear that the boy already had himself a girlfriend was just the icing on the cake. Oh, so who is it? Hinata Hyuga, Kakashi smirked. Jiraiya thought about it as it clicked in his mind. You mean the little girl you said that's been following your son around for years, the heir to the Hyuga clan? Well, I have to say the boy knows how to pick them. I can already see a story in this, the princess and the warrior. Already his mind was thinking of the plot and all kinds of fun he could have with that. Maybe have the boy and princess sneaking off for secret midnight meetings, battling for her honor and love. The story had potential. He'd have to see if he could spy on the boy and his little girlfriend the next time he had the chance. So is all you're here for is a little check-up on Naruto? Kakashi asked the old spy. Partly, Jiraiya said as he cast a quick look around. Mainly I've been on the trail of a certain snake and my sources tell me he's been on the move lately. I can't find anything concrete but a lot of the rumors have been going around. Plus a few other things have been bothering me, like this new Sound Village. For being one of the smaller nations it's had an unusual growth. No one knows where the village is either, but from what I can tell its forces are starting to rival the larger villages. Kakashi looked surprised at that. Normally the smaller villages didn't have a large supply of forces. Since most jobs went to the larger ones, the smaller ones had to limit their numbers. Too many people without enough income led to ruin quickly. But to have such a large number didn't make sense for Sound. They would need a large number of resources, plus how rich was their village to afford this? Plus where did they get to many ninja in such a short time? The only thing he could think of was that they had to take in rogue or missing ninja from other villages. That was a dangerous practice as you not only made yourself a target and enemy, but also how could you trust and or control such people? I see you're beginning to see what I'm seeing, Jiraiya said, his face more serious now. Things don't add up. I heard they have a team here, so that's one of the reasons I'm here, to see what kind of ninja they have. Plus there's a rumor one of my old teammates is in the area as well. Kakashi knew that there were only two people, and he would have just said Tsunade if he meant her. So that left only Orochimaru. That could mean trouble for this village if that man was around. Things are never easy, are they? Kakashi sighed. No, but then that's the life of a ninja, isn't it? Jiraiya asked. Forest of Death. It had been 2 days and already Team 7 was wishing for the final day to get there. For the past couple of days they had been scouting the forest. They made sure to stick to the trees and to keep hidden. They also avoided any other teams if they could. It wouldn't do them any good to wear themselves out in the first couple of days. So they lived like shadows and always alert. They slept in shifts, ate what they could find in the forest, and always made sure to never leave the team for long periods of time. They also tried to keep the noise down, which was driving Naruto nuts. He hated the quiet, but he knew better than to give their position away. They had found a few teams, some looked beaten up and limping back to the gate. Most likely they had lost their scroll and were too injured to continue on. Little did they know that they were being stalked almost the entire time. One figure was watching the team from the shadows. The figure moved silently, waiting for the right moment to start the testing. Oh Sasuke, how much of your brother do you resemble, I wonder? The figure grinned in the trees. Can you hold a candle to Itachi's powers? Will you interest me enough or will you disappoint me? Well, the first thing I'll have to do is break you all up and see if I can get you alone. The others don't matter, but I hope you've enjoyed your life so far, because by the end of this day your life, if you survive, will never be the same again. Outside Forest of Death, Enko was taking a nice long break. After all, she wasn't really needed to enforce any rules given there weren't many rules to break in the first place. Plus, if any team couldn't make it, she had a few Chunins and a medical team on standby if they were needed. She was just to ensure the test ran smoothly and explain the rules. So that left her ample time to relax and just wait for reports to come in, then she could give her orders. Plus it also left her some free time to spend with Kakashi as well, which was really nice. Normally their schedules didn't allow for lots of free time together. But now with his team in the exam and her running it left for a lot of free time. At the moment Kakashi was laying with his back to a tree with her snuggled in front of him, and a plate of dango on her lap. At the moment life was good, as she relaxed with him. It was nice just sitting here, not really having a care in the world together, his arms wrapped around her waist with his chin resting on her shoulder. She used to scoff at people in relationships, how they acted in public, how they talked about the person they said they were in love with and all of that. She never once thought she could ever find a decent guy anyway. After all, she had been the apprentice to one of Konoha's greatest traders. It had taken a lot of time for people to start to trust her, but the old stigma was still there at times. But Kakashi didn't care about her past, only about her, and it gave her such a warm feeling in her stomach. She smiled as she thought she would never get into a relationship, but here she was. If someone a year ago told her this, she wouldn't have believed them. Hell, she had most likely thought she would die in some mission before she found someone. But it seemed that the train wreck that was her life was finally giving her a decent break. Kakashi sat there with her in his arms as she silently ate the dango he bought for her. He could smell her scent, that husky smell of earth with a sweet smell in the background. He just held her close, feeling her body against his. It had been a very long time since he felt he could open up to anyone. After Obito's death he had taken it pretty hard, then when Rin was lost and presumed dead it didn't get any better. Finally when Minato died Kakashi felt the world was going dark. But there had been that one bright moment as he took Naruto in. Naruto had been the light in his darkest hour of his life, when Kakashi had no one left. Naruto had been the one happy point in his life for years now. Over time he had started to open up again thanks to what it meant being a father. It was strange how young Kakashi was, and yet Naruto was growing up fast. In a few more years Naruto would be a full-blown teenager, and soon after that would most likely move out and start his own life. It was actually kind of depressing for Kakashi to think of the house without Naruto in it. It would seem too quiet, and it was Naruto in the first place that made Kakashi retake the old family home. If he hadn't had Naruto he most likely would have sold it years ago and just lived in an apartment. But even though he had started to make new friends and new bonds, the one he was reforging with Enko was different. At first they became friends, now they were becoming something more. He felt like that first day he held Naruto in his arms, like he had found that small light in the darkness again. Only this time it was a different type of light, and he was eager to explore and see where it took them. Unfortunately their perfect afternoon was interrupted by a trio of Chunins that had appeared out of nowhere. Enko-san, the lead Chunin said, nearly out of breath. "We have a problem." Enko sighed as he pushed herself out of Kakashi's arms. All she thought was that this had better be good to get her from her two most favorite things in the world. "Well, spit it out," she told him, standing up and brushing off her coat. "We found 3 bodies near the Forest of Death. They've been dead for a few days, which is why we were able to find them," the Chunin explained. They were in a small ditch covered by a genjutsu, but one of the patrols was walking by and noticed the smell. It was then that the genjutsu was noticed and dispelled and the bodies found. Enko knitted her eyebrows together. It sounded like a strange way of disposing of a body. Normally a fire jutsu would work, but that caused smoke, plus an earth one would cause tremors that could be felt and heard. This was an easy way of disposing of the bodies, and also said that whoever killed them didn't care if they were found eventually. Just as long as the bodies weren't found too soon. "Is that all?" Kakashi asked as he was curious as well. "It's not. The faces of all the murder victims were, well, it looks like they were peeled off." Both Kakashi and Enko looked surprised at that, but more so with Enko. She knew of a technique that used that, but it couldn't be the one she was thinking of, because if it was then they were all in a lot of trouble. Take me to them, now. Enko told the three. The five of them hurried to where the bodies had been found. They hadn't been moved just yet as a medical team would be arriving later to pick up the bodies. Enko looked over the forms. They were ninja, but they weren't from this village. She saw the headband of the grass ninja on them, and at first she thought a team had taken them out before the testing. But she could have sworn that she saw the grass team taking their places by a gate. And she was certain that grass only sent one team this year anyway. Looking at the faceless bodies, she took a closer look at how the flesh had been removed. It had been surgically removed by the looks of it. It was perfectly done. It was then that she noticed another thing. She knew this technique. It was unmistakable, as only one man in the world could have the skills and knowledge to do something like this, and it also meant she knew why the faces were taken. You three. Enko shouted at the Chunin. We have imposters in the Forest of Death. Get any available Anbu units in there and then get the Hokage. Tell him about the bodies and then tell him that I think, he, has finally returned home. One of them asked. Just do it now. Enko yelled, and the three Chunins were already off. Enko wasted no time in running towards the forest. She was so focused that she didn't even notice Kakashi was running alongside her until he spoke. Enko, what's going on? He asked her. He was a bit worried, as he had never, not once, seen her like this. It took a moment for her to be able to form the words. He's back, Kakashi. Orochimaru has come back to the village and he's in the forest with all the genin. Kakashi's one visible eye widened. Everyone knew who Orochimaru was, of course. The inhuman crimes that man did were unspeakable. Kakashi even knew one of Orochimaru's test subjects while in Anbu. The man had been infused the DNA of the first Hokage, although that was kept secret for many reasons. The fact that Orochimaru was here was bad enough, but the fact that he was in the forest with the genins was even worse. Who knew what that man was up to, but it was obvious the genin teams were in trouble. His mind went to his son and his team, and he hadn't felt panic like this in a long time. It had been so long since he had to really worry about Naruto's safety, not since he was a young kid, with all those accidents that happened, and the one assassination attempt that guy stopped. His eye became hard as he raced with Enko into the forest. If Orochimaru even came near his team, he would do everything in his power to kill the man, even if he knew he would most likely die in the process. Then let's hurry and find him, Kakashi eventually said to her. Enko didn't say anything as she just nodded her head. Sure, she would have liked to face Orochimaru alone and kick his ass, but honestly she felt better with Kakashi with her. She knew he was a more powerful fighter than her, and she would need him to face her old teacher. Orochimaru, I don't know what you're up to, but I swear today is the day I'll make you pay for everything, Enko thought to herself. Chapter 48, Snake in the Grass. The grunt and the sound of a leaf genin hitting the ground was heard as the last member of the team fell unconscious. Standing around them was Team 7 as they started to search through the other genin team's stuff. Man, I feel a little bad roughing them up, Naruto said as he looked through the older boy's pockets. I mean, I know it's every team for themselves, but still they're from our village. Yeah, I know what you mean, Sakura said looking through the pouch on the girl she knocked out. But still they were the ones that tired to ambush us. Anyone even know who they are? No, Sasuke said, not finding the scroll on his opponent. I think they're a couple of years ahead of us. Ha, they're older and yet we still kicked their asses, Naruto smirked as he found a scroll. He took a careful look at it and jumped up for joy. Alright, they had one we needed. You sure it's the real one this time? Sasuke said as Naruto froze at that moment. Yesterday when they fought a team, Naruto said he got the scroll. Turns out it had been a dummy one with a genjutsu on it, and given Naruto's horrible ability with genjutsu they hadn't figured it out until Sakura took a look at it. By then the other team had long since gone. I think so, Naruto said taking a look at it. Sasuke sighed. Sakura. On it, she said as she took the scroll and gave it a decent look. Huh, it's real this time. Good job, now we just have to wait out a day and we can make our way to the tower. So why can't we just camp out near the tower? Naruto asked as they left the genin team behind them. Because how many other teams do you think would have thought up to stake out that area? Sasuke said to his friend. It's better to just wait it out and then make a rush for the tower, avoiding everyone else. Oh, Okay, that makes sense to me, the masked boy said as they continued on. They went on not even aware that they were being followed the entire time. It was starting to get dark when they decided to make camp for the night. They found a decent area where they could sleep inside of a hollowed out part of one of the old giant trees. Hey guys, I need to go take a leak, Naruto said. Geez, could you at least say it a better way than that? Sakura asked him. He just shrugged, smirking under his mask as he went off to find a place to relieve himself. He didn't want to get too far away because he might get lost or even ambushed. He went behind a few large trees a decent length from their camp. Even though he couldn't go too far, he also had to make sure he wasn't too close. If there were any trackers like Kiba out there, then they could find them a lot more easily that way. He found a decent place and unzipped as he relived himself on a rock. Actually, he found it was a very weird looking rock now that he started looking at it. Sure, it looked hard like rock, but it was kind of a strange color and the surface looked odd too. Then suddenly a piece of the rock lifted up to reveal an eye looking at him. Naruto's eyes widened because he knew that kind of eye, but it didn't process until what he thought had been a rock he was peeing on lifted up into the air. Oh crap! Naruto yelled out as he jumped out of the way of the giant snake striking. What the hell? If this is because of the crazy snake lady, I'll get her back. She never said anything about giant snakes. Naruto was focused on trying to keep ahead of the giant snake. Thankfully he had plenty of practice avoiding snakes with Anko. Although he had never had to deal with one this big before, and it was a challenge to keep ahead of it. Man, what the hell is going on? I mean, this is insane. Crap, and on top of that I think I got turned around. I can't tell where camp is. Well, with all the noise this guy is making, the others should have no problem finding me. The huge snake crashed through a tree just to get at Naruto, and he was wishing he hadn't peed on its face to get it this mad. Naruto had to dodge this thing and still trying to get his fly up. He took to the tree branches and finally he managed to get his clothing in line. Yes. Alright, now you freak, I can concentrate on. Naruto was caught off. When he had been distracted by finally getting his pants right, he had lost track of the snake for a bit. It had gone under the branch and came up under him. With its massive jaws it swallowed Naruto whole in the branch he had been on. Meanwhile, back at Team 7's camp, the two genin heard the noise in the forest. What the hell is going on out there? Sasuke wondered out loud. It sounded like huge no-holds-bar brawl was going on in the forest nearby. Do you think Naruto is okay? Sakura asked her teammate. I mean, didn't he go off in that direction? Sasuke sighed as he realized that she was right, and knowing Naruto's ability for attracting trouble, he wouldn't be surprised if he was in the middle of all of this. We better go and save the idiot before he gets hurt. Sakura nodded as they leapt up to the treetops and traveled among the branches. It wasn't too hard to figure out where to go with the amount of noise that was being made. But then it suddenly stopped and Sakura was getting worried. They only made it a few yards when suddenly a kunai was thrown into their path as they had to avoid it. Both of them looked to see a tall female with a grass symbol on her forehead protector. Out of our way, Sasuke said, annoyed. We don't have time to play with you. Oh, but I think you do now, she said in a smirk on her face. My little pet seems to have caught that mouse of a teammate of yours, so there is no reason for you to hurry. What did you do to Naruto? Sakura shouted out at her. She only chuckled in amusement at her outburst. Oh, don't worry, I get the feeling you will join him shortly. After all, it's the Uchiha that I'm here for. I don't know who you are, but you're getting out of our way. Sasuke said as he threw several shurikens at the grass nin. He was surprised by how easily the other person evaded the deadly weapons, but at any rate that was just a distraction. Sakura came up on the blind side with her tonfas ready to strike, but the female was just too fast and was able to dodge Sakura's attacks. She snapped out a kick that Anko taught her once while the older woman had been training her with her weapons. She thought that she was going to connect with it, but the grass ninja just caught it and looked at her for a split second, almost like she finally took notice of Sakura. Now where did you learn that little move from? She grinned at her. Tell me, was Anko playing teacher lately? You know Anko-sensei. Sakura blurted out, surprised. Of course, I did teach her that kick, but you came in at the wrong angle. This is how it's done. With that, the grass nin gave the same kick, only this time it hit Sakura. She felt the power of the kick and was stunned for a moment. While getting up, she was trying to piece together what the woman had said. It didn't make sense, as the woman looked too young to have been a teacher to Anko and she wasn't even from this village. As she watched the strange woman fighting Sasuke, she couldn't help but notice a few things. Few of the moves looked like what Anko fought with, only more polished and better. But at any rate the woman's back was to her and so Sakura threw out her kunai at her. But the woman somehow knew and dodged the weapons easily enough. I have to admit you two are proving to be slightly entertaining, but I'm still disappointed in you Sasuke. I expected better from. Fine then, how about this? Sasuke made the hand seals and suddenly a flaming dragon came at the grass ninja. It was quick and fast and followed with the female ninja's movements until it consumed the other ninja. Both Sasuke and Sakura got together as they watched the charred wood of the large branches they were fighting on. Where's the body? Sakura asked as she got into a fighting stance. A chuckling sound was heard as out of the trees the figure seemed to step out. Now that is what I'm talking about, I didn't expect you to know that jutsu. You might just be interesting after all, now let's see what else you can do. Elsewhere in the forest, Anko and Kakashi were trying their best to find Orochimaru and if possible to check in on the genin teams. So far they couldn't find any trace, which was both good and bad. Good because they didn't find any bodies, but bad because they still haven't found him. It was then that she noticed Kakashi's head suddenly snap up a bit. What is it? She knew that his sense of smell and hearing were above what a normal person had. Not as good as someone from the Inuzuka clan, but it was one of the reasons she was glad he was along. If anyone could help her track down Orochimaru, he could. I smell snake, he said and then saw her dirty look. No, not from you, but the fact I smell it means we're close, plus I could have sworn I heard something too. Then lead the way, she told him as they increased their speed. It didn't take them long to find the destroyed area of the forest. Anko could see the telltale signs of a snake, and not just any snake. This was a huge one, larger than just any snake that lived in this forest. In fact, only a summoned snake could be this big, and she told Kakashi just as much. He didn't seem to like it as much as her. It was then that they heard the slight noise before the attack. With years of training they were able to avoid the huge snake as it struck out at them. Well, I would say we found our first clue, Kakashi said, getting himself ready. So since you're the expert, how do we fight this? Before Anko could answer, there were sudden bulges in the snake. Even the snake's face started to show some surprise as giant popping sounds were heard, and then suddenly there was a series of explosions and the entire area had snake guts and pieces raining down. Both Kakashi and Anko were just so suddenly stunned by both what happened and the fact they were now covered in snake guts. Oh man, maybe I should have just used normal shadow clones instead of the exploding ones, Naruto's voice was heard. He was the worst out of them all, as you could hardly make out any other colors than red. Naruto's ears were ringing a bit from the explosions, but he thought that the exploding shadow clones would be a surefire way to get out. He hadn't thought of the after effects it would have though. Naruto. The blonde looked up to see Kakashi and Anko there. Oh hey dad, what are you two doing here? Both adults were at a loss for words. Here was a kid that blew up a snake from the inside and he acted like nothing had happened. Both Anko and Kakashi could feel things slipping through a few places in their clothing and would need a shower after this. Naruto, where is your team? Kakashi finally asked him. Naruto looked around, but he had no idea where he was now. Sorry, the snake moved after it ate me, but I think it might be over that way, I think. Well, better than nothing, Kakashi sighed, hoping they would arrive in time. Meanwhile, both Sakura and Sasuke were breathing hard. The battle had been totally one-sided in this fight, as the grass nin was just playing with them, it seemed. It was painfully apparent that this was no genin, this had to be at least jonin level. But for Sasuke, he was having trouble thinking of why someone of this caliber was posing as a genin, and why was she going after him personally. It didn't matter anyway, as they had to concentrate on surviving this battle. Well, I have to thank you, it's been a while since I've enjoyed myself like this, the strange nameless woman taunted them. But I think it's time to see just how strong you are. With that, the person actually started to peel away part of her face. There was pale skin under it that was practically white. But it was the eyes that caught both genin's attention. They were yellow and looked like a snake. They were drawn to those eyes, and it felt like they were caught in the grasp of a predator. Then they felt it, a wave of killing intent unlike anything they had felt before. It was more than what they experienced with Zabuza. This was far beyond that. They couldn't even move. Their bodies were frozen in place from just the fear they were feeling. Sakura had never felt anything like this before. She wanted to scream but couldn't. For Sasuke this was even worse than that day his brother killed his family. The grass ninja laughed at this. Too bad. I didn't really expect you to fight through this technique of mine as only the truly strong can. But maybe just once more test to see if you're worthy, Sasuke. A few hand seals and suddenly there was a giant snake come into existence. If you can force yourself to move before he attacks, then it should prove all that I need. Sadly I doubt the girl will survive, but he can eat her anyway. I don't need her. Sasuke's eyes widened as he saw the huge animal coming at them. He was still trying to move but the fear kept his body frozen in place. It was like time was slowing down as the giant animal came down at him. It opened its mouth as the beast was going to eat him and Sakura. Then there was a sound like a large number of birds. Chidori. Kakashi came out of nowhere as he slammed his original jutsu into the head of the summon animal. When a summon was injured it would go back to where it came from, but if someone was fast enough to give a lethal blow that would kill the animal. The snake had been so focused that it hadn't noticed the copy ninja until the lightning attack had rammed through its head. There was a sizzling sound as it started to fry the snake's head. The large animal thrashed around before falling to the forest floor below with a huge crash as it died. Kakashi jumped off the head onto a branch between the two genins and the enemy, while Enko jumped in on the large branch that the other ninja was on. Well, isn't this a surprise, the grass ninja said seeing Enko. I had hoped to run into each other again but I'm a little busy at the moment, although I must admit I like the new look with all the blood and gore. Damn you, you bastard. Enko yelled at him, ignoring the comment on her appearance. I've been waiting to rip you apart for what you did to me. Oh, so it's only about you and not all the other things I've done. Well, isn't that just selfish of you? Shut the hell up, Orochimaru. Enko yelled as she charged towards the missing ninja. Naruto meanwhile managed to jump down to his teammates. He could see that after the snake thing was killed and Enko was taking on the weirdo, they dropped to their knees. Guys, are you two alright? Naruto asked them. Both of them seemed to be shaking. Naruto. Sakura asked, looking up at him and then saw how he looked. Naruto, are you okay? Huh, you're covered in blood. Sasuke managed to get out. Naruto looked down and forgot his looks and just shrugged. It's okay, it's not mine. I got eaten by a snake and had to blow it up from the inside. That was kind of cool, but I really need a shower. I think there's some guts in my pant leg. Both of them just stared at him for a moment, just trying to process what had just happened between the crazy grass nin and Naruto's looks and his statement. I'm not bothering to comment, Sasuke muttered as he felt his nerves coming back to him. Who is that woman anyway? Sakura asked Naruto, hoping he might have some answers. She was pulling off her face. Dad and Auntie Enko told me that it's really Orochimaru, Naruto said. He knew all about him from Enko, plus they had told him a bit more about him on their way here. Orochimaru, of the Sannin? Sakura asked him. She remembered reading about the legendary three ninja. There wasn't much on Orochimaru, only that he was criminal that left the village years ago. Although the first thought was that Orochimaru was a man, not a female. Then she noticed the fighting and then it became clear. Enko was battling her old mentor. For years she wanted this. She had thought of this moment and it was finally here. She was trying her best against him, but she had never really fought him. Sparred with him when she was a young girl, but never fought in a life or death battle with him before, and she was learning that there was a major difference between the two. She cried out as she got a kick to her gut, sending her into the trunk of the tree. She held her ribs as the air was sent out of her lungs for a bit. She wanted to try and use this one technique that used snakes she had learned. She had never used it for the purpose that it would kill her as well as her target. A year ago she would have used that without hesitation. But things were different now. Now she actually found that she actually wanted to continue on living. She liked her life and didn't want to end it. Orochimaru stood over her as he pulled off his face to reveal his real one. Now I know something is off. Where is the killer I helped to raise? Normally you should be trying to fight without worrying for yourself or your safety. I have to wonder what changed. I guess you were too soft anyway. He raised his arm ready to strike her down. I think I'll just put you out of your misery then. You always were a failure. Get away from her. Kakashi yelled out as he slashed at him from behind. He had seen he was about to do something to her and he wouldn't allow it. This man had attacked his genin team, made a snake eat his son and now was trying to kill his girlfriend. Sure, he knew that he didn't stand a chance against someone of that level, but he also couldn't sit by and let him get away with this anymore. Orochimaru smirked as he dodged the kunai. Ah, well, so little Anko-chan has finally found herself a man, and Hitaki Kakashi no less. He grinned at the man before him. I will have to admit I didn't see that coming. I figured her hate would have eaten her up inside for all her life. You have no right to say anything about her or anyone after the things you've done. Kakashi said coldly as both his eyes were now focused on the man. Well, defending your woman's honor is it. Orochimaru chuckled at the man. But I doubt it will matter in the end. I'm here for a purpose and you two are in my way, so I guess I'll just have to deal with you both. Orochimaru launched himself at the masked man and Kakashi just managed to get out of the way of his swing. Anko, seeing an opening, decided to attack from behind, launching her own snake attack. A long black snake came shooting out of her coat to bite the other man. Orochimaru somehow twisted his body in a way that no human body was designed to twist while leaning back. He grabbed the snake by the neck and pulled with monstrous strength, pulling her off her feet, and he swung her around into Kakashi. Naruto saw this and was anxious to get into fighting. Hey, you creep, leave them alone. Naruto, no, Kakashi said as he and Anko pulled each other apart. Don't get involved in this, I want you all to run as far away as you can. What, you can't ask us to leave you behind. Naruto, I'm telling you as your sensei to run, this man is too powerful for you three alone. Kakashi said to them, hoping they would run. He didn't want to see them hurt, and also if he was after one of them then it wouldn't be good no matter what the reason was. Sorry, but I can't have them running off. Orochimaru smirked as he raised both arms as a large number of snakes came shooting out of the sleeves. Both Anko and Kakashi were put onto the defensive as they had to constantly dodge the poisonous vipers. Anko had a better time as she knew what to look for in a snake, how it moved when he stalked and attacked. Kakashi stayed ahead thanks to his experience and his Sharingan eye. He managed to get behind a trunk as he took a breather. Kakashi knew that they would need to take him by surprise. Orochimaru was above their level, so they would have to get in one good shot and then capitalize on it. He had a move that could work, the only problem was that it could drain him of a lot of chakra. He didn't use this move often because of that drawback, but he needed to use that technique now because he wasn't sure how much longer they could keep on the defensive. Anko had managed to get behind a trunk as well as she tried to plan out an attack of her own. She didn't get far as the bark seemed to explode next to her. She felt small bits and pieces cut against her skin, but she kept on moving, only to realize too late that it had been to get her to move in that direction. Orochimaru came out from behind and she felt fangs bit her thigh. She saw a snake had bit her. Thankfully, from her training with Orochimaru, she was immune to most of his poisons. After all, handling snakes, it was important to have an immunity to it in case of accidents. But she felt the numbing effect in her leg. It was a toxin, but it wasn't fatal, it would just slow her down, and that was a bad thing in a fight with him. She paused as she had to regain her balance but felt a vibration in the trunk. She turned and threw out several shurikens at Orochimaru as he ran at her. He dodged the weapons and Anko tried to get ready for his attack. But then Kakashi jumped out in front of her. Kakashi, get out of the way. Anko yelled at him in warning, but it came too late. Orochimaru's fist hit Kakashi, but there was a sudden flash as Kakashi literally exploded into electricity. There was a large bright flash that blinded Anko for a few seconds, but there was just a scorch march left where Kakashi and Orochimaru had been. It was then that the real Kakashi stepped out behind a tree, panting as he was sweating and tired. That technique took a lot out of him and he wouldn't be able to do anything else for a bit. He leaned against the trunk of the tree to catch his breath. What the hell was that? Anko asked as she limped over to him. Lighting clone, Kakashi said with some effort. But don't ask me to do that again. I'm lucky to get through 2 a day, but after using a Chidori and a few other things I don't have the energy. Anko grinned at him. That was a pretty badass move. Maybe I can pull something like that off with fire. That could be interesting. Kakashi grinned at her under his mask. So touching. Orochimaru's voice was heard as he appeared seemingly out of nowhere. He looked slightly charred as his arm had electrical burns on it. I have to admit that one nearly got me. It wasn't a joke either. When he had attacked, he felt a bit of that energy in him before he was able to slip out of it. His arm felt bad, and if he hadn't used a special escape jutsu of his own design, he might have been greatly injured by that move. He would have to perform the oral rebirth jutsu when he could. That was a technique he also came up with that allowed him to shed his damaged body as a refreshed one came out of his mouth, although it took some energy to regenerate the cells of his body to make that new copy. Orochimaru's opened up as a snake came out of it, and then that snake opened its mouth as a sword came out. This was the Kusanagi sword, long sword of the heavens, a legendary sword that was said to be able to cut through anything. The sword shot out as it kept on increasing its length as it came at the two ninja. They dodged the attack as it cut the large top of the tree like it was paper. The large mass came down in a mass of destruction as branches broke in loud snaps, sending wood, splinters and leaves everywhere. A falling tree was dangerous as any woodcutter can tell you, but with the huge trees in around Konoha that was even more dangerous. Wood that size being thrown around with that kind of force could cut off limbs or impale a person. Kakashi lost sight of Anko in the confusion as he tried to dodge as much as he could, but his body was tired. He was too drained of energy from the lightning clone, and with his Sharingan he was running too low on chakra. He was literally running on fumes, and it felt that at any second he would collapse. Kakashi shook his head as his vision blurred. He couldn't stop. There were too many lives on the line that he cared about. He had already lost everyone that meant something to him once, and he wouldn't let it happen again. Unfortunately for him, he was too tired and focused on staying awake to see Orochimaru until it was too late. He felt the man's hand on his face as he was shoved back into a trunk of another tree. His body made a dent into the wood as Orochimaru slammed his head into the wood a few times until he saw a stain of blood on it. He grinned as he now had a way to get Anko out in the open. He threw the limp form of Kakashi away, letting him freefall to the ground below. As Kakashi fell off the branches towards the ground, he also slammed against a couple of the thick branches, bouncing off them before being caught by Anko. She had seen him falling and couldn't let him hit. At that height it would kill him if he landed like that. So she got out of her hiding spot and went to save him. She managed to get him onto the ground and saw that his eyes were closed and blood from his head. He had hit his head pretty bad. There was a lot of blood, but that wasn't a bad thing. Scalp wounds just bleed out a lot. Most likely he just had a cut and it would stop bleeding soon. But with using up all the chakra and the head injury, it wasn't a good thing. You should have been more careful of your surroundings, Orochimaru said as he appeared behind her. She tried to move against him, but suddenly the seal on her neck flared up in pain. No, not now, Anko said through gritted teeth. Too bad you never embraced that power. If you had, then my seal wouldn't be your weakness, Orochimaru gloated over her. Then again, it's because you lack the desire for power that you were useless to me. All that training I did to shape you into what you were was all a waste. Oh well, you were helpful in testing out my new curse mark, so it wasn't all a waste. Bastard. She managed to get out. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't respond. It was locked up and she hurt all over. Then she felt a strong punch to her ribs, and not only felt but heard the ribs crack. She fell backwards as Orochimaru grabbed her leg and threw her face forward into the tree. She cried out in pain and slumped to the ground unmoving. Now then, where are those children? Orochimaru smirked. Wind Blade Jutsu. Grand Fireball Jutsu. Orochimaru turned to see a fire jutsu coming at him, but when the wind jutsu hit it, the fire molded with the other. It looked like a giant arrow made of fire as it came at him. The missing nin jumped out of the way to look to find all three kids were still there. Wow, how did that happen? Naruto asked, surprised. Wind makes fire stronger, Naruto, Sakura said to him. So they complemented each other and kind of merged to form something new. Oh man, we really need to try that out later, Sasuke, Naruto grinned. We still have a problem, Sasuke said, looking at the pale-faced man. Weren't you three supposed to run away? Orochimaru grinned at them. This would make things so much easier now than chasing them down. Plus, with all the fighting, it would only take Anbu time to lock in on the location. Sure, the forest was large, but with all the battle damage they caused, it would leave an obvious trail for trained Anbu agents. A man who breaks the rules is trash, Naruto said with a bit of steel in his voice. But a man that abandons his friends is worse than trash. So what's that way about someone that abandons their family? Such sentimentality, the man said with a sneer. It's garbage like that, which is one of the reasons I can't stand this village anymore. Such weakness will only lead to pain and death. here let me show you. With that Orochimaru picked Anko up by her neck, she was still stunned but cried out in pain. She felt a lot of pain in her upper chest, maybe a broken collarbone which being lifted up like that was one of the last things she needed. Orochimaru started to squeeze her throat cutting off her cries of pain in a choking gagging sounds. Let her go. Naruto roared at him. The others noticed something strange about Naruto just then. They were feeling a killing intent from him that wasn't normal. In fact they never felt anything like it before. Sakura was shocked when she looked at him. His eyes had changed, they were blood red with slits in them. Before she could process any further the dark feeling from Naruto increased causing her to freeze up. Sasuke wasn't much better. Whatever was coming off of Naruto was evil, which didn't make sense as Naruto was the least evil person he knew. Sure they argued, fought and were rivals but he had grown to respect Naruto and after being put on a team with him he learned to actually like the guy in some strange way. So feeling this strange malevolent force coming off of Naruto was just too much of a shock to his system. Maybe if he had been prepared for it, but this was the first time feeling something like this. Actually maybe it wasn't. He wasn't sure but this strange feeling was familiar. For some reason a long forgotten memory of waking up in bed years ago as a small child came back to him. He felt like he had some kind of panic attack in the middle of the night. He didn't remember much, only that the next day people had been nervous. This was back when his brother was still in Anbu. Before either of the two teammates could shake off the shock of the evil killing intent coming off Naruto he moved, in fact he moved faster than ever. Naruto was nearly a blur as he came at Orochimaru but the man just stood there smiling. So predictable, Orochimaru thought to himself. The boy's feelings are letting the demon within gaining some control. Just like that Gaara boy, but I can't let this boy as he is. He's too interesting to kill just yet, maybe I should save him for later. After all, they will be after him soon enough and if they find out that I killed the host, they will come after me. So I'll just take him off the board for now, a counter seal should be enough. Orochimaru waited until Naruto was close enough and threw Anko aside as he readied his hand. His other one was too damaged to move properly so he had to time this just right. His fingers started to glow as different seal words showed on each finger. He quickly came forward under Naruto's swing and slammed his fingers into where he knew where the seal was. Naruto cried out in pain and shock as the demon's chakra was suddenly sealed off from him. The pain was so intense that Naruto passed out. Naruto! Sakura yelled out as she jumped forward with her own weapons, Sasuke right behind her. Enough games for today, Orochimaru said to himself as he moved so fast it was like a blur to the genins. Sakura felt a hard blow to her head before hitting the ground and passing out. Sasuke looked around for the man, his sword ready. But Orochimaru had fought Sharingan users before, especially Itachi, and he knew how best to fight them. He came up from behind as his neck extended and fangs bared. He bit into Sasuke's neck. The boy howled in pain as it was like someone was pouring fire into his veins. He let the boy fall to the ground and stood amongst the bodies grinning. Now it was only a matter of time before the boy would seek him out for power. He chuckled to himself as he melted into the shadows of the forest to repair the damage done to his body and to get ready for the next part of his plan. Chapter 49, Sakura's Courage. The first thing Anko was aware of was pain, and this wasn't the usual kind. She woke up with a sharp gasp as pain seemed to flare all over her chest. She blinked as there was nothing but darkness, but soon shapes took hold. As her eyes adjusted she noticed she was in a cave. She could feel the stone against her back as she was sitting against it. Her legs were numb from being in the same position, so she tried to work them but hissed, feeling the pain in her chest when she tried to move her body. She tested herself out and she knew she had a few broken ribs and one of her arms was tied to her upper chest with a modified sling. She rolled a shoulder and grunted. It felt like a fractured or broken collarbone, so she wasn't going to move under her own power anytime soon. She looked around the cave. There was a small light and heat from a small stone circle with embers in it. It gave enough heat without making too much smoke, which was a good thing in such a tight area. She saw Naruto and Sasuke was laid out and next to her was Kakashi. She looked down in concern and spoke his name but there was no reaction. She bit her lip as she was worried. He looked a little pale and there was no telling what kind of internal injuries both of them had. She used her free hand to check herself and noticed a bandage wrapped around her torso. She could make out slight first aid on Kakashi as well. Light footsteps caught her attention and she saw a tired-looking Sakura walking in. "Oh, thank God you woke up," Sakura said, seeing Anko was awake. "I was so worried. How long?" Anko hadn't realized just how dry her throat was and was thankful when Sakura noticed this and gave her some water. "A full day at least," Sakura said, sitting down. "I had to carefully drag you all here, get the supplies and also set up a perimeter." Anko raised an eyebrow at that. She did all that by herself. It was impressive for a genin of her size to carry 2 adults. Although as the feeling was getting back she noticed some scrapes on her legs and guessed the girl had dragged her part of the way. "Anko-sensei," Sakura said softly. "Was that really Orochimaru?" Anko sighed and nodded. "Yeah, it was. I just wish we could have done more to the bastard. Still have no idea what he's really here for." "Well, he said it was testing Sasuke-kun." Sakura told her about how their fight had gone and the things the man had said to them. "I also noticed something on him when I was checking out his injuries. He's got this strange mark on his neck." Anko jolted at that, making her cry out in pain. That had been a stupid move. "Tell me, does it look like a mark one have on the same area?" Sakura went to look and she was surprised to see a mark similar to what Sasuke had. "Yes, it looks almost the same. What is it?" "A curse mark," Anko said bitterly. "It's something he made up. I don't know why he put it on me, but it royally screws with me at times. Hell, during that battle it went off and I couldn't move because of the pain. I know there has to be more to it, but honestly I don't care. I just wish I could get rid of the damn thing." Sakura looked worried over at Sasuke and Anko could see the girl's mind was filled with worry and possible reasons why her teammate was targeted. Anko closed her eyes, feeling lightheaded. She wanted to stay awake, but at this rate she felt like she could pass out again. "How are the others?" Anko asked, trying to get her mind going. "Naruto hasn't woken up for some reason. I don't know what happened to him, but he doesn't have that mark on him." Anko nodded. It was a good thing that Mark would most likely react negatively to the demon locked inside of him. "But Anko-sensei, something happened to Naruto," she said to him. "He gave off this killing intent. I never felt anything like it before. It was just so evil, but Naruto is like the nicest guy the first know. Plus his eyes, they changed." Anko winced, and now it wasn't because of the pain. She knew how smart the girl was, and if anyone could piece things together she might. "Look, I can't tell you what happened. It's a secret that only he can tell you, but I suggest that you drop it for now." "But Anko-sensei." "No buts," Anko said harshly to the girl. "This is important, Sakura. Look, there are just certain things that a ninja has to learn, and one of them is that you always won't be told everything. Hell, that should be a general rule actually, but Naruto is, well, let's just say special. It's a S-class secret and leave it at that, as even I can't tell you." Sakura didn't say anything, but she felt a little hurt. She had known Naruto since childhood, but he was holding a secret from them. Sure, everyone had their secrets, but this seemed something important, so why would he not tell his teammates and closest friends? Were they not as close as she thought? Anko sighed and wished Kakashi was up. She could use his help with this. "How is Kakashi?" "Stable, at least I think so." Sakura only had basic medical abilities, but at the moment she wished she knew more. Everyone was hurt and she felt helpless, not being able to do more for them. Hell, they could be dying and she wouldn't know it until it was too late. It was this moment she realized just how useful medical knowledge could be. If she knew more she would know what to do other than just the basics. Anko gently ran her hand through his silver hair. She ached seeing him like this. She knew that as a ninja either of them could be hurt or killed, but it hadn't really registered until now. A part of her was cursing that she let herself get this close to someone. That she should have broken things off before they had gotten so serious, or had never started things off. She wouldn't feel all this pain at seeing like this, and the pain thoughts of him dying on her were horrible. It felt a deep, dark aching in her chest and felt her eyes welling up with tears. She didn't cry, damn it, she never cried. But here she was starting to lose it in front of a genin. She hated showing any type of weakness. But then another part of her couldn't stop her feelings for Kakashi. He saw past the surface and saw what was under it with her. She felt a connection with him, and she felt less lonely in life ever since she got mixed up with him and Naruto. Before she had been so alone. Sure, she had a few friends, but with them she felt like she had the closest thing to family she had. She looked over at Naruto and she even felt feelings for the boy. She liked him, he was just fun to be around and life just seemed better. The same with Kakashi, and ever since they started to date she had never felt so happy before. But there was a double edge to forming bonds and she was feeling those now. Enko-sensei, will help be coming? Sakura asked her. Enko thought about it, should be. Myself and Kakashi haven't reported in so they'll be combing the woods for us. But it's a big place and they'll be looking for Orochimaru, meaning they'll be taking things carefully. There was a moment of silence before Sakura brought up something else that she had the time to think about. She had heard enough from the fight to learn a few things and she had to ask. Enko-sensei. Was it true? That he used to be your teacher? Enko sighed, resting her head against the cold rock wall. Yes, it was a long time ago. Back when I was around your age I think, he was my sensei. Back then no one thought he was really a monster, hell he was up for Hokage until the fourth was picked over him. I remember him being very pissed at that. I think that's when things really started to go wrong. He was acting strange and then one day he told me we were leaving for a special training trip. I don't remember much else. Hell, it took me years just to get this much of my memories back. He put that curse seal on me and most of my memories of him are just gone. I was wandering around a beach when Konoha Anbu found me. Sakura didn't say anything else, she never knew, plus she could see the pain and anger in the older woman when she was talking about it. She could tell that Anko had been hurt by the experience more than she might let on. So she said nothing, there really wasn't anything she could say. Suddenly a loud crash was heard. Someone's tripped one of my traps, Sakura said silently. Made traps, huh? Anko always did like that. She was wondering if the girl picked up anything from Naruto. If she had any brains she would have, that kid was a genius with traps. Another loud sound was heard as well as a breaking sound. Alright, that's enough. A voice came out and Sakura recognized it was one of the sound genin. We know you're in there, now come out and bring out the Uchiha or we'll just start a fire and burn you out. Looks like they mean business. Anko winced as she tried to get up but failed again. If they'll listen to me I can get involved and tell them to leave your team alone. Really? Sakura said hopefully, then noticed the serious look on Anko's face. What's the price? Your team will have to be disqualified. We can't show favoritism, if we do then that team must be taken out of the exam with no appeal no matter the circumstances. It's one of the ground rules that all the villages agreed to when the Chunin exams were first created. It was to ensure fair play and that no village gave their own genins an unfair advantage. Sakura thought about it, sure the best thing was to let them be taken out of the exam, but the truth was she and her teammates wanted this. She wanted to prove to everyone and to herself that she was strong. She remembered being picked on as a child and how others came to help her. She remembered how Naruto and Sasuke were always so much stronger, how she felt like she was holding them back at times. She didn't want to be the one to cause them to come all this way only to fail. She didn't want to fail either. Despite it all, she needed to prove at least to herself how strong she was, that she wouldn't be bullied anymore and she could stand on her own 2 feet. Besides, she got a feeling that even if Anko told them to leave they wouldn't. Something just told her that they were coming for them no matter what. I can't let you do that, Sakura said as she stood up. If I don't come back then do what you can to save them. Anko looked at her and gave a small laugh. Look at you, so young and yet want to grow up so fast and be a real ninja. I am a ninja, Sakura said facing the opening. I think the first time I killed was when I took my first steps. I can't let them down and I need to face things like this. I can't just quit and leave when things get tough no matter how it seems. Anko grinned. Well, you picked up some interesting things. I had good teachers. Sakura gave her a small smile before going outside. Sakura came out to see that several of her traps had been sprung. She had spent a long time preparing the area, but so far the sound team was still standing. It was a shame, she had hoped for at least one of them down. Where's the Uchiha? Kin, the female on the team, demanded. Why do you want him for? Sakura asked, trying to stall for a little time as she tried to take stock of things. There were 3 of them, and she noticed which traps had and hadn't been tripped. We're here to see if he really is worthy, Dosu, the one wrapped up in bandages, said. Sakura's eyes widened a bit at that. Are they working with Orochimaru? It can't be coincidence that he said something about testing Sasuke-kun and now they show up. But they're from the Sound Village and he was disguised as a grass female ninja. Is he disguised from someone from their village giving orders, or does he work for that new village? There were just too many unanswered questions. Why did Orochimaru gave him that curse mark? Why did he risk so much into coming back to the village? Was there a link between him and the sound, or was he just using this team? Are you three working for Orochimaru? She asked, hoping to answer a few things. The others shared a look and then looked at the girl. Looks like we can't let her live no matter what if she asked that. Kin said as she came at Sakura. Sakura's eyes widened as she prepared for a fight. It looked like the others weren't going to step in. Well, that worked out well for her. She doubted she could take on all three anyway. The girl with the long brown hair came at Sakura and threw several kunai. Sakura did a simple replacement and a log took her place. Kin searched around as several versions of Sakura appeared. Clones. Please, don't you know anything more than just simple academy crap? Kin looked to find the real one, as the clones wouldn't make a sound as they hit the ground. But none of them were hitting the ground. Kin, what the hell are you doing? She's right there. Dosu yelled out. Kin turned, wondering what he was talking about, when a metallic piece of metal hit her face. Because her head had been turned, it had been a glancing shot, but it still hurt as Kin jumped back. She had been hit by nothing, or at least she thought it was nothing. Kai! Kin yelled out as she cancelled the genjutsu that the girl had used. Apparently the whole deal had been a basic illusion. She must have done it when she had did the replacement, but now she could see the other girl. Kin was pissed that she fell for that trick, so now she was going to use a trick of her own as she pulled out her special Senbon's needles with Bell's attack to them. If this girl likes genjutsu, then she'll love this technique, although unlike most you can't cancel out of this. Kin threw several Senbons with small bells attacked at Sakura's direction, but never actually hitting her. For a moment Sakura was wondering if the sound girl had missed, then she heard the ringing of the bells and suddenly the world was twisting. She was fighting to just keep her balance now as Kin came at her and slammed a punch into her face. She felt the blow being followed up by a kick and more blows, but she had so much vertigo she didn't know she hit the ground until she felt it slam into her body. The world was still twisting as Sakura tried to desperately think of what was going on. Things were okay until the bells were ringing. How pathetic, Kin sneered at Sakura. Did you honestly think you could be a ninja? I mean, bright pink hair. You look too much like a girly girl to be in this. Sakura wasn't really listening as her mind was trying to think what was going on. The sound of the bells had to be the key as this started with them. Knowing genjutsu, she knew she had been in one, and the sound of the bells had to be the trigger. The only problem was that she would have to destroy the bells to use a release, because the bells constantly rang. They kept placing her in it. Unless she could block out the sound, a plan started to form as she just hoped she could reach inside her pouch. You know, from an ugly girl like you, I can see why you wouldn't care about looks, Sakura said to get the other girl angry, and it worked. She felt a kick to her stomach as Kin gripped her by her short hair up. What did you say to me, Pinky? Kin angrily gripped her hair even harder. Sakura winced but didn't give up. She reached into her pouch and slipped a smoke bomb out. Kin saw the explosion and felt the girl jerk away as the sound genin jumped clear. She looked to see she had strands of the other girl's hair in her hand and threw them aside. That won't help you, Kin said through the smoke screen. She waited until the smoke cleared and the girl was on her hands and knees. Kin had no idea what foolish idea the other girl had. It wasn't like she could have gotten far with her bells messing with her inner ear with their sound. But at any rate it was time to end this. She drew out a kunai, getting ready to kill the pink-haired genin. It was a total surprise when Sakura suddenly struck out with her tonfas when Kin was too close to dodge. The first blow hit the girl's wrist. Holding the kunai, Kin cried out in shock and pain as her wrist was smashed by the metal weapon as she dropped her own weapon. Sakura didn't stop though. She used her momentum to twist and with her other weapon hit the knee of the other girl, dislocating it with a sickening sound. Kin dropped to the forest floor in pain as she was unable to stand. How are you getting through my bells? Kin cried out, seeing Sakura standing without any problems. Sakura drew out several shurikens and threw them at the bells, then turned to Kin and pulled out an earplug that had been in one of her ears. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Kin's eyes widened. Now she knew why the girl had used a smoke bomb. It was to cover the fact she'd put in earplugs. With her ears sealed, her bell's effect would have been practically nothing now. She felt herself a fool for falling for this. If Lord Orochimaru had seen this, he would have been so disappointed in her. Her two teammates came up to her and she felt shame in being defeated by this pink-haired girl. I guess I'm lucky that Naruto talks in his sleep, Sakura thought to herself. Every member of Team 7 had their own earplugs after the first mission, nighttime mission with Naruto. But now I have the other two. I know the one in the bandages has something with that arm thing of his, but I'm not sure exactly what it does. The other guy with the wind tunnel arms I need to be careful with. Well, looks like this girl is tougher than she looked, Dosu said. Like that's tough, Zaku said, flexing his hands. But let's see how she handles both of us. Nearby, not far away, Team 8 had been making their way through the woods. So far they had been lucky. They managed to get both scrolls as well as picked up an extra just in case. That had been Shino's idea in case they were beaten and they could trade the spare and still have both of them. They also were lucky to have escaped from the Suna team without being caught. They had never seen someone die like that before and it had shaken them a little. They were over it now, but they all agreed that if they even got an idea that the Suna team was close by, they would bolt and keep as far away as possible. They had been traveling in random patterns in the woods so no one could guess which direction they were heading. They were taking a small break at the moment. Oh man, I'm hungry. I'll be happy when we get out of this place and get some real food. Kiba muttered to himself. So far they had to hunt down their food, and although they knew the basic survival training and what to and not to eat, that didn't make eating things like snakes, or some bird they got taste any better. Hinata, can you scout ahead for us? Shino asked her. Hinata nodded her head and activated her eyes. The world turned black and white as she scanned the area. She could notice several animals but so far no people. Then she came across what looked like a large battle had taken place. She focused on that area in case whoever did it was still there. She saw several figures fighting she wasn't familiar with, but she knew the other figure. It was Sakura and she was fighting against 3 people. That didn't make sense. Where were her teammates? She quickly scanned around and found a small cave. There was Kakashi but his chakra was nearly gone. There was also Anko, and there laying on the ground was Sasuke and Naruto. Both weren't moving and she suddenly knew that something was very wrong. Hinata, what's wrong? Shino asked, seeing the look on her face. She quickly explained what she saw to them. We have to go help them, she said, filled with worry. Well, it's not like we can leave them like that. Even if we are in this, they're still our friends, Kiba said to Shino. The bug user thought about it. Logically they shouldn't try as it would ruin their chances for advancement, but the non-logical part of him told him that that was wrong. He remembered how Naruto came to him as a child, the first boy to actually talk to him and made friends with. Lead the way, Shino said as they quickly made their way to the area. They quickly made their way to the combat area. By the time they arrived, Sakura was having a hard time just standing. She had been forced to fight against the 2 opponents, but it was hard to keep herself from getting killed. Sakura had a few injuries and she was tired, but she was still fighting. She wouldn't give up because so much was riding on her and she didn't want to let her friends and teammates down, but she was nearing her limit. Dosu, the mummy-looking boy, jumped at her with a fist on back, seeing an opening in Sakura's defense. But before he connected, a kick to his ribs sent him flying off in another direction. Given that half his face was covered in bandages, the attack had come at his blind side. He looked to see a boy with a dog where he had been. Soon Hinata and Shino joined Kiba to face off against the Sound team. Guys, Sakura said, relieved to see them all. Wow, you look like crap, Sakura, Kiba grinned as the pink-haired girl scowled at him. Why don't you take a rest? Looks like you deserve it. Looks like we got us some leaf ninja. Back up, Zaku said as he extended his hands as the wind tunnels in his arms sent a gush of wind out. Teammate hadn't expected such an attack as they were blown back by it. Dosu took this to run closer, and when his teammate stopped his attack he used the device on his arm. It was a huge sonic weapon that could do a few things. One of them was the mess with the inner ear, even blowing it if he used it right enough. He thrust his fist forward and sent his chakra into the device. Although his blow was nowhere near any of them, teammate felt the attack, more so with Kiba and Akamaru from their sensitive hearing. With them unable to keep their balance, he capitalized on it and with 3 swift attacks hit each member of the team. Shino felt that sonic attack with even his bugs. He remembered how they felt when this boy had attacked that other one with the cards before the first exam. Now that he was closer, he saw that his attacks were sonic based. Against something like that they didn't have much of a defense. But his mind came up with a plan as the boy seemed to need to see where to aim his sonic attacks. Blindside, now. Shino said the code word for something that their team came up with. As one each of them threw out a smoke bomb. The entire area was covered in smoke now. Usually both parties would be blind, but this was where Team 8 was unique. Kurenai had come up with this idea seeing their strengths. Shino couldn't move, but his bugs would be able to move through the smoke somewhat as their senses were more powerful. Kiba and Akamaru could smell through the smoke, and Hinata with her eyes would be able to see through it. Dosu was blinded and was looking around as he couldn't find the other team. Then he felt a palm slam into his chest, then he was hit again, and again, and again. He was being hit an impossible amount of times as one more hit caused him to fall onto his back. Zaku! Dosu yelled out and the wind started up again as it cleared the smoke. Dosu could see that on her knees trying to stand in the wind was the little girl of that new team. She looked up and he saw the eyes and the veins showing, the telltale sign of a Hyuga. Dosu had heard of that clan, and as he tried to move he could feel that his body was struggling to move. Hinata had used her family fighting style to seal off several of his charka paths. She hadn't gotten them all, but she had sealed enough to make it hard for him to move properly. It would give them time to at least avoid his sonic attacks from now on, but now they had to deal with the other one. Kiba and Akamaru tried to jump at him, but the wind was too strong and actually blew them away in mid-air. Shino tried his insects, but the wind was forcing them back, making him trying to concentrate on a new battle plan. He couldn't use his bugs en masse because they were too easily seen. He sensed a few had managed to sneak by and were trying to attack the boy. It wasn't much, but maybe he could slowly build on their numbers. Before he got that far, that other boy with the sonic weapon on his arm came at him again, only more slowly, so Shino was able to avoid it. However, with the boy with the wind it was going to be difficult in getting around him, plus the girl seemed to be using a tree to get back up. They needed to take that one boy out, but so far he couldn't see a way around him yet. Turns out he didn't have to, he felt it before he saw it. There was this dark chakra building up in the area that was disturbing for his bugs, and suddenly the one sound Genin cried out in pain. From behind, Sasuke Uchiha had woken up. He had seen Sakura injured and the others fighting the sound team, so it wasn't hard to figure out what was going on. Also, something was strange when he woke up. He felt powerful, more powerful than ever before. His veins felt like they were red hot. Currently he had gripped the wrists of the boy with some kind of wind power in his hands and pulled the arm painfully back as he placed a foot on the spine of the person. He grinned down at the boy, who managed to turn his head around enough to see him. "Now then, what's this with you attacking my teammate over there?" Sasuke said in a dark tone. Chapter 50, Out of the Fire. Sasuke wasn't sure why he felt so good, but he did, and the feeling of power he had was the most intense thing he had ever felt. He felt totally invincible, like nothing could stop him. He saw how Sakura looked banged up. She had small cuts here and there, slight bruising, but nothing too serious at least. He noticed Naruto's girlfriend and her team as well was here. Well, he was glad that they didn't finish off this sound team. The girl looked like she could barely stand. The other guy looked okay, although weaker than normal. The boy who he was currently breaking his arms off, well, he wasn't doing too good obviously. Sasuke grinned as he felt the boy's arms start to give. The sound Genin was begging and pleading with him, but honestly, Sasuke didn't really care. This team needed to be taught a lesson, and he would teach them all the true meaning of pain. He gave a small chuckle as he pulled on one arm harshly. There was a sickening sound as the boy screamed. "So I take it your arms are the key to your power, huh?" Sasuke said to him. "Let's see what you're like when I take away that so-called power of yours." Black markings started to crawl into existence onto his body. They didn't stop until they covered about half of his body, and Sasuke felt more power at this moment. He was about to snap the other arm, and then he would really go to work on the boy, that is, until he felt someone grabbing him. He was about to attack, thinking one of the sound Genins had gotten behind him, when he heard a familiar voice. "Stop this, Sasuke-kun," Sakura told him. "This isn't you. This is Orochimaru's curse mark talking. Please don't let it do this to you." Sakura had never seen Sasuke like this. She knew this wasn't him. She could feel the evil power coming off of him, as the others did, she bet. She felt her young heart breaking seeing the power of Orochimaru at work, how it twisted a person up inside. She didn't want him like this, she wanted him back to his normal self. If he kept this up, would he never return to normal, or would this be him from now on? She could literally feel the dark energy by being so close to him, and it made her feel sick inside. Please, just stop. You don't have to do this. She whispered to him. Something deep inside was touched by that. Sasuke paused as he felt conflicted. His hands loosened enough for the sound genin to slip out and slowly crawl away. Knock him out if he can't get it under control. Anko had yelled out at everyone. She had seen Sasuke run out of the cave, but it had taken her a while to move her body out into the open. She was already in a lot of pain from forcing herself to move, but she knew better than most what that curse mark could do. When she had seen the Uchiha run out like that, she had forced herself to get out from the cave. She hurt like hell, but no one knew what to do better than her. Sasuke-kun, please. Sakura begged him one last time. Sasuke seemed to pause as he let the sound genin go. Something deep inside of him was fighting to the surface. Was this wrong? If so, then why did it feel so good? Why was she trying to get him to stop? They hurt her, hadn't they? So then why was she stopping him from killing them all? Actually, he wanted to do more than just kill them. He wanted to pull them apart. Like pulling the wings off flies, they were nothing to him. They were beneath him. Why should you care, after what they did? He asked her. They should all die. That's not you talking, she told him, hugging him closer, hoping that he would break free. Sakura, do it now, Anko yelled out. Sakura didn't want to hurt her teammate, but it didn't look like he was going to pull himself out of this. I'm sorry, she whispered out as she moved her body as fast she could. She wouldn't get a second chance, and Sakura knew she had to take advantage of him being distracted. She pulled back slightly and with her tonfa, slammed the small end into the back of his head. There was a thunk sound as it hit, his body jerked and he fell face forward. She flinched when he hit as she had tried to catch him, but she had missed. I hope he's not going to be angry when he wakes up, Sakura said to herself. When it was all over, everyone looked at the fallen Uchiha, surprised at what had happened. For a moment no one said anything, the whole thing had been just so surreal. Shino then noticed that the sound team was reforming and sent his bugs to stop them. The black insects swarmed around the three of them. I think you should stay right there for now, Shino told them. So what do we do with them? Kiba asked, seeing that the other team was banged up. Look, if you let us go we'll give you a scroll, Dosu said as he held up one of the scrolls. We don't want any more trouble. What do you think? Kiba asked Shino. We can't kill them, Shino said as he doubted any of them could kill in cold blood. It wasn't in their nature to pick on the weak either. They couldn't hold them prisoner as that would be too troubling, plus with all the other teams out there impractical. Team 7 still had problems of their own as well. Very well, leave it behind and go. But we'll be watching you. If you try to double back to his area then we won't accept any surrender. The sound team wordlessly placed the scroll on the ground as they left as best they could. Shino walked over and took up the scroll. It wasn't like they needed it, but now they had a backup for both scrolls, it would seem. Hinata moved over to where Sakura was. She saw the other girl was taking care of Sasuke. Sakura, how is he? He'll be okay, but he'll have a major headache when he wakes up, she said. What about Naruto-kun? He's still inside the cave there. Help Anko-sensei while I get Sasuke-kun in there, will you? Hinata nodded as she eagerly went to the cave. Although Anko complained about being helped back into a sitting position beside Kakashi, she knew that Hinata was only helping. After that, the Hyuga girl sat next to Naruto as she gently stroked his blonde hair. She bit her lip seeing him looking like this. It brought back memories of when he had been put in the hospital. She had thought that she had died that time and she was very worried. Naruto-kun, Hinata said softly. She lost track of time and noticed that Anko was smirking watching the two of them. Please wake up. I don't want to lose you, not now. Why, you've always been there, you've been one of the greatest joys in my life. You were my first friend and gotten my first love. Please be okay, I can't lose another person I love. I'm not strong enough to go through that again. She felt the tears starting to spill out and she laid down on his body, crying silently into his chest. She gripped his black vest as her tears stained the orange shirt under it. It wasn't fair, for so long she had cared for him and then she fell in love with him. Now after all these years they were finally together, it was just cruel to lose him at this point. Then she felt a hand on her head. Please don't cry, Hinata-chan, a tired voice said. Hinata's head came up suddenly as she looked surprised to see Naruto looking at her. Naruto-kun. She quickly hugged him tightly as he was surprised by this, also she was hugging him pretty tightly too. Enko could only chuckle as she watched the two but noticed that Kakashi moved. She was hopeful that he was starting to wake up and so she shook him gently. He groaned, which was a good sign as he hadn't been responsive until now. Hey Kakashi, time to wake up, she said softly. Ah. Kakashi slowly opened his uncovered eye. The world was dark and out of focus for him. He felt like hell and he could barely even move his body. It felt like someone was shaking him. A moment later he thought he heard voices. Kakashi, come on and wake up. Enko, he asked as he felt a female hand on his face. He looked up and the world was slowly getting back into focus. It was dark but he could start to make out Enko's features. She looked like hell but then again, that's how he felt. Hey there, she said softly to him. How long was I out for? More than a day at least. You had me really worried, you know that. She told him a little harshly. She hated how scared she had been. Sorry, Kakashi said after a bit. He asked for any water as his mouth was really dry. Thankfully Sakura had left one next to her and she gently poured it into his mouth. Hinata was too busy still clinging to Naruto to notice and the others weren't in here, so she could pull his mask without him worrying. She put it back up as he thanked her. After that they took the time to check his injuries. As far as he could tell he had some minor ones, nothing fatal but the chakra exhaustion was the worst of it. How are the others? Kakashi asked her. Well, Naruto seems okay, even with his own personal nurse it seems. Enko smirked as Hinata fussed over him. Sakura got a little banged up but Sasuke, he got a curse mark put on him. Kakashi didn't like that one bit. He knew from Enko what those things were like. He would have to deal with that when the time came. Outside the cave, Sakura had put Sasuke's head on a makeshift pillow from spare clothing from one of their backpacks. She was worried about how things would go with him. Team 8 was also wondering how long to wait around. Although they were friends, this was still a competition and they had done a lot for Team 7. They couldn't leave them like this, but they made a decision that when Naruto and Sasuke were back up they would leave. It was just practical because after 3 days they had to make it to the tower by the 5th day. So they had a day and a half to get to the tower or else they wouldn't advance. It was at this time that the Anbu had finally found them. For a day they had been searching the forest, which wasn't easy. They had to use stealth to try and track down Orochimaru and they had also run into several summoned snakes. Apparently the ex-Leaf Ninja had set a few loose in the forest for a laugh or to just keep them busy. But 4 of them had found the battle area where Kakashi and Enko had fought and followed the trail. As the 4 landed they took stock of the area. So far only Genins were here, 2 looking a little worse for wear. Oh, you finally found us. Sakura felt a bit better now. Enko and Kakashi-sensei are in the cave. An Anbu wearing a bear mask stepped forward. They're in the cave. He had reports that they went off in search of Orochimaru. Yes, they fought him, in fact he was after Sasuke-kun, but they're both injured. She told him. Bear looked to the others and nodded his head to them. They would look after the ninja. He got a special smoke bomb ready. It would give a large color of smoke to alert others of their position. He picked out a green one. This would mean urgent medial help was needed. About time you guys showed up. What the hell took so long? Enko's voice was heard as she yelled out in sudden pain. Damn it. Don't touch it like that. Bear looked to the girl. This could take a bit. Maybe you can fill me in so I can tell the Hokage what happened here. After Sakura told him everything, they had managed to get Enko and Kakashi out of the cave. Sakura was happy to see that Naruto was back up as well, only a bit confused on what was going on. He also looked pretty worried for his dad as well. One of the Anbu seemed to have medical training and did her best for the 2 of them. Enko felt a bit better as her collarbone was knitted back together a bit, although it was only a patch job, at least it didn't hurt as bad now. Kakashi was another matter. They gave him a chakra bill to help him restore his reserves but he needed rest. Also the hit to the head he had was going to have to be looked at as well. It was around this time that Sasuke was waking up. Everyone was pretty nervous at this because they weren't sure what to expect. Sasuke-kun, are you okay? Sakura asked attentively, although she kept one hand gripped to her weapon just in case. I think so, the boy said as he went to feel a bump to his head. What had hit him? He kind of remembered waking up, a sense of great power. He remembered breaking the arm of one of the sound team and about to do the same to the other arm. He also remembered a little of how much he had been enjoying it, which was wrong. He never enjoyed hurting people, he always tried to stay detached from feeling in battle. He remembered Sakura trying to calm him down, then Enko yelling out something and then, "Did you knock me out?" Sasuke asked her. Sakura looked away from him. "Yes, I'm sorry, but you were out of control and Enko-sensei said that if you didn't get under control, that I had to do it. I'm really sorry." Sakura still couldn't believe she had just done that to him, her major crush, and what did she do? Slam a metal tonfa into his skull. Sasuke was silent a moment before standing up. "It's okay." "What?" She looked up in surprise. "You did what needed to be done," Sasuke told her as her turn to look at the scene around him. "You did your duty as a ninja." Sakura wasn't sure, but this was the closest he had ever gotten to complimenting her. Sasuke meanwhile was just avoiding looking at her because he was embarrassed. Had he really been that much out of control to be knocked out? He prided himself on his control, but to lose it so easily made him feel disgusted with himself for being so weak-willed. On top of that, he had to be knocked out. He hoped that no one would know of that part at least. As Team 8 left, they went on their own way to the tower. Now that the mandatory 3 days were up, they could start to move towards the tower. As they jumped through the trees, Shino noticed something. He had the extra scrolls in his backpack, but it felt lighter for him. At their first rest stop, he checked the bag and found that their old spare was gone. He looked at the bag, but there didn't seem to be any hole in it. "What is it?" Kiba asked him. "I lost one of the extra scrolls," he said, making sure it wasn't there. "Well, it's not like we needed 2 extra anyway, but I wonder when you lost it," Kiba asked out loud. They didn't notice the slight smile on Hinata's face at that moment. Back with Team 7 as they were packing up, Naruto noticed something poking out of his bag. He pulled it out and it was one of the scrolls. At first he thought it was theirs, but Sakura was supposed to have had it. Then he noticed it wasn't the same scroll. This was another one, in fact it was the one they needed. At first he was wondering how in the world that had happened, but he suddenly smiled. He remembered that Team 8 mentioned something about having 2 extra ones, and that Hinata had been fixing his bag for him. "Okay, I really need to pay her back for this," Naruto thought as he placed the gift his girlfriend left for him. Maybe it wasn't exactly honorable, but hell, the first part of the exam had been how good to cheat. Plus anything goes in this, and given they were attacked by a rogue criminal ninja, well, it all evened out. "Man, I can't wait to show them this," Naruto grinned, and then he noticed something strange. He was feeling a little more tired than he should. Although he just woke up, Naruto still felt not all there, which was odd. He would always bounce back, since he knew now why he healed so fast, so why did it seem like it wasn't working now? He even noticed that he still had a slight cut on his arm. It was scabbed over and would heal, but the point was, that should have healed already. He remembered that guy doing something to his stomach. The image of that mark on Sasuke's neck came into his mind. He took a quick look around, and when he was sure no one was looking, pulled up his shirt. There were no markings, but what if Orochimaru had done something to damage the seal there? Naruto was getting a little more worried. If the fox ever got out, it would hurt everything he cared for. He molded some chakra and the seal showed up. "Okay, everything looks okay. Wait, what the hell? Were those there before?" Naruto thought he noticed something off about the seal. There were some weird looking marks that he was sure weren't there before. He hoped his dad was okay by the time they hit the tower, because he would have to ask him to take a look at this. Minus 24 hours later. Team 7 had half a day left before they had to reach the tower. They were already making a mad dash for it. They had gotten a slow start as they were still recovering from that fight with Orochimaru. It also didn't help that they had to fend off against other teams along the way. The closer they got to the tower, the more teams seemed to be around the area. It wasn't easy, in fact it was hard. Naruto for some reason was having trouble with his ninjutsu. His shadow clones were coming out a lot less in number and seemed weaker for some reason. He also couldn't get a decent wind technique going either. Sasuke was having similar problems. He once tried to do a grand fireball and had to stop in the middle of it. The curse mark on his neck had flared up, giving him pain. Sakura was the only one not handicapped, but her own stamina was running low from having to pull the extra weight. Now they were just on the edge of the forest. The tower was in view, but there was only one problem. There was a large open space between the forest and the tower, the perfect place to set up an ambush. Great, so now what do we do? Sasuke asked, looking over the large area. It looked too easy for someone to just jump out at them. Naruto thought about it, but he suddenly got an idea. He remembered once when he tried to get past some bored chunin on guard duty for a prank once. He got a grin on his face as the idea took shape. Well, I have an idea, we just walk right up to the place. What the hell are you thinking? Sasuke asked him, annoyed. Just watch. Naruto made a cross and there were two clones now standing with him. Although, Naruto looked disappointed for some reason. What the hell? I was going for 4 not 2. Don't look at us, one of the clones said. Not our fault. The other finished. Fine, just do what I planned on doing, Naruto said, annoyed as the clones pulled a henge. Now there stood 2 ANBUs like the ones they had just met. See, we walk up looking like prisoners. If anyone stops us, then one of these guys will tell them to get lost or else they'll be kicked out of the exam. Sakura blinked. It wasn't bad for a plan. But what could we have done to get the ANBU after us? I hadn't thought that far ahead. Sasuke sighed. How about that we were caught looking into the scrolls? Since we're not supposed to, it's the only thing that could actually get us into trouble. Oh, that makes sense, Naruto said as they got ready. They gave all their weapons to the ANBU agents and they were lightly tied with their hands behind their backs. Just in case this didn't work, their hands could easily come out of the ropes. With a moment to take a mental breath, they all set out. They walked instead of ran, because that would seem very suspicious. They also tried to look the part of captives. Sakura kept her head down as if in shame, Sasuke looked like he wanted to kill someone, and Naruto looked like he was trying to get his hands free, but doing a horrible job of it. They could almost feel eyes on them, as they traveled, but they kept on going. They were about halfway there when they started to think this could work. But it was when they were nearly there when they heard someone coming up behind them. They saw what looked like a Leaf Genin team. Either they were on their way to the tower or they were trying to see if Team 7 was easy pickings. Unless you Genins have a reason to be here, either get to the tower or get a scroll, one of the ANBU said in a deep voice. Hey, we were just wondering what's going on, the middle boy in the group asked. We were just curious. I mean, why are you taking them away? They opened up the scroll, so they're being escorted to the tower for punishment. One of Fakes stated. Whoa, that's what happens when you open them up. A boy with spiky hair asked, surprised. I didn't think it was that serious. Well, it is, the ANBU said, getting a little frustrated. Now get going or we'll report your team pestering us. They were about to leave, but the final member of the group paused as he grabbed his 2 friends. Hold on, something's off. How come they're both wearing the same mask? I thought ANBU had to wear different ones. Naruto's eyes widened as he looked. Both were wearing a bear mask. He mentally slapped himself in the head for forgetting that. Both clones must have had the same idea and no one had bothered to check. Well, he lost his and that's my spare, one of the ANBU said, feeling a little nervous now. Something is fishy here, one of the boys said as he started to take a closer look. These ANBU were looking a little nervous, plus why would looking into the scrolls be that bad? Chunins or that crazy woman with the jacket he could see overseeing the exam, but being from this village it was just too odd for the special ops to be involved. Maybe a team from another village wouldn't notice, but being here they knew the kinds of things ANBU were said to do. Crap, this is bad, Sasuke remarked silently to his friends. What now? Sakura asked in a similar hushed tone. I say we make a break for it, Naruto said, slipping his hands a bit more free. My clones can slow them down, but I got 1 smoke bomb left as well. Alright, but we need our equipment back from them too, Sasuke told him, and the masked blonde nodded. Look, we don't have to answer to a bunch of Genins. One of Naruto's clones yelled out, trying to cow the boys. So far, it didn't seem to work. That's when Naruto slipped his hand out and reached for one of the few pieces of equipment he could hide in his jacket. They didn't give all their weapons away, just the visible ones. Throw us the gear and stop them, Naruto yelled out as he threw the smoke bomb into the Genin team. One of his ANBU clones tossed the backpack containing their gear and Team 7 was off. They ran as fast as they could. Naruto looked in for anything to help as he heard the sounds of fighting. His clones wouldn't last long, one good hit and they were toast. Yes, Naruto had found a kunai with an explosive tag already on it. It must have been Sakura's as he didn't have any ready like this, plus it looked like it was done by textbook standards. He threw it behind him, not even looking as he set it off. There was an explosion with some yelling, but they didn't stop running. Naruto couldn't hear anything other than his heart pounding and his breathing, but he just stayed focused ahead as he ran on. The others did the same, and soon they saw an open door at the base of the tower and ran inside. They didn't even stop until they were halfway inside the room. Once inside, they all breathed a sigh of relief. They were panting for air as they looked behind them. It seemed that the genin team wasn't or wouldn't follow them into the tower. Maybe they didn't have both scrolls and didn't want to run the risk of being kicked out of the exam. Well, whatever the reason, Team 7 was finally in the tower and they were glad for it. Now they were in a huge chamber with two huge phrases written on the wall ahead of them. It sounded like a riddle to Naruto, something about heaven and earth for some reason. If qualities of heave are your desire, then acquire wisdom to take your mind higher. If earth qualities are what you lack, then train your body and prepare to attack. When heaven and earth are opened together, then the perilous path will be righteous forever. So, what's this supposed to mean? Naruto asked, reading it over again. He hated riddles, they made no sense to him. I mean, other than we have scrolls called heaven and earth, what does it mean? Sakura thought it through. I think it's something like they mean different things. Heaven and earth seem to be associated with the mind and body. A ninja must train his body and mind to act as one, Naruto suddenly said, catching everyone's attention and surprised look. One of the things my dad taught me. So then you need both, like how we need both scrolls, Sasuke said. He looked at the two scrolls they had. When heaven and earth are opened together, I guess we can open them both up, Naruto said as he took one and Sakura took the other. They weren't sure what would happen, after all they weren't supposed to open it. He did and was left a little confused at first. It looked like a seal at first, but he was unfamiliar with this type. Hey, what kind of seal is this? All it says is, man, on it. Then both started to smoke. Both genins threw the scrolls away thinking they might have screwed up. There a pillar of smoke, as it cleared, a form seemed to be inside of it. Then when the smoke cleared they were greeted by a very familiar sight. Hey there, Uruka said, smiling at them. For a moment there I wasn't sure you'd make it, but congratulations on passing the second exam.